there's a microphone right there to catch the last gurgles, and Technicolor to photograph the red swollen tongue.
Hey, Vern.
Future events such as these
Angling?
will affect you in the future.
Damn you, Rabbit! You smell like fucking piss!
You're watching The Projectors.
Hell yeah!
A film fan program discussing a variety of movies from history and around the world.
What do you think of this boner I got?
Featuring your hosts, Bob Sham.
When you're Scandinavian, flopping out your mommy milkers is nothing.
And Angela.
If they were just gun perverts, this would be fine. Party!
Thank you for selecting The Projectors.
I want French pancakes like at IHOP.
And now a preview of our film discussion.
We've been gone a long time. We back now. You twins? Nah, we cousins.
There are legends of people with the gift of making music so true. It can conjure spirits from the past and the future. This gift can bring fame and fortune.
Will somebody take me in your eyes?
But it also can pierce the veil between life and death.
Listen here, this ain't no house party. Shit. Y'all ready to drink? Y'all ready to sweat till y'all stink?
You want some?
You keep dancing with the devil.
Careful, boy. You gonna bite off more than you can chew.
One day he's gonna follow you home.
We got us a problem now. What the hell going on?
Oh, we heard tale of a party.
This world already left you for dead. I can save you from your fate.
You don't need no saving.
Yes, you do. And you are? I am. Your way out. Don't cry. It's all better now.
Yes, I lied to you.
I don't believe in magic. Ghosts, demons. Just power.
Somebody please take me.
We gonna kill every last one of you.
I didn't mean to scare you. Thought y'all done forgot about me in here. Come on, open the door, let me on out of here. Stay. It's you? Of course it's me. Open the door.
That ain't your brother.
Lied to you.
Yo, smell anything? I think I shot myself.
Hey, it's been almost
a long time.
Almost 3 months. Almost 3 months.
Yeah.
And we needed that time. We probably need more time because I feel like shit. I got like some cold or something that I keep. And I had an eye infection.
Allergy infection.
I had an eye infection too. It was gnarly. Imagine me recording when my eye looked like it did 3 weeks ago. Ugh. I'm also full of Mexican food. Life is hard. Full of that sweet taqueria Cameron soup. This is the Projectors. We're back. I mean, we're not going to be back the way we used to be, though.
No, we can't do it.
It was. I mean, it was great how much we did it. But I will say this, and I'm going to go ahead and make that promise now, so I'll have to hold myself to it. Even though I said over and over again on the Oscars episode that we were going to watch all those movies. But then I looked at that list of movies. I was like, I don't want to fucking watch that one of that bad movie about the trans lady, whatever her name is. Well, yeah, that is
Zoe
bad.
Saldana won an Oscar. Good for her.
Universally shat on, except for like the Golden Globes. Only the Golden Globes seem to like that movie. But not that we're against trans people. We love them. We accept them. It's just that movie does not look good. I think we will probably watch The Brutalist soon. It is on Max. And I do want to see Conclave because all that Pope stuff has been popping off. We got a Chicago Pope now.
I know.
He's from Chicago. He don't eat ketchup on no hot dogs. Our first American Pope.
Yep.
I'm not Catholic. I'm vaguely fascinated, but I can easily go back to not giving a shit. But yeah, a lot's been going on. Hey, I got to interrupt myself here because I never said what I was going to initially promise. And I do that all the time. I always forget what I'm going to say. It happens all the time. Some of y'all probably know that. But what I was going to say is that we are going to do Halloween Humpfest. But I haven't decided if we're going to do classic individual episodes 5 days a week, or if we're going to do one episode a week where we discuss 5 movies. And now that I say that, I think I might like that better. Because we'll be discussing the exact same amount of movies, but it'll be one episode a week, pretty long drops. Our episodes now, even though we're not doing every other day, we're going to have some long ass episodes. So that's all I wanted to say was Halloween Humpfest will occur. All right, back to the show. I love you. A lot of terrible things still. A lot of the bad things that were happening before we left are still, look, we're really just right next to each other. These are we maybe need to work on our background for the next recording.
Yeah.
Because it seems a little awkward.
I'm way overdue for redecorating this back wall since we redesigned this room.
We have a glowing neon movie humper sign. That was the name of our old show, or that was the name of this show before we changed the name. And for some fucking reason, I have never put that sign like on video when we're talking about movies.
Yeah.
Like it's like hung up in a closet. Like hung up, like you can light it up, but where no one will ever see it.
You can kind of see our arcade again.
That
was like early days.
Yeah, early days. But we're actually going to be talking about a lot of movies. We did promise on our last recording, before the EFA special drop that we did with special guest Drew, that we would be talking about a few more Gene Hackman movies. And we are going to do that. But we were kind of going based on the Gene Hackman movies that were free, that we could find free streaming. So there's a couple of movies where Gene Hackman's like the second or third bill
most of
on
them.
the movie. Except French Connection, which we will get to. But we did see some current movies that are getting a lot of buzz, that people are losing their shit about. So without any further ado, let's talk about the movies. The first one, we got to get to it. It became a sleeper hit. We're talking about the movie Sinners. It's directed by Ryan Coogler, written by him as well. Stars Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, Miles Catton, Jack O'Connell, Delroy Lindo, Wunmi Mosaku. Cinematography by Autumn Durald Arkapaw from Proximity Media and Warner Brothers.
You forgot to mention Michael B. Jordan.
Again, which I do want to... I've got some compliments on this movie, but I do have some questions.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
This movie is kind of interesting because when it first dropped, it didn't quite hit that budget on the first weekend. And so it seemed like, movie reporting around it seemed a little cynical. But people kept going to it. And I think there was some word of mouth around the movie. So we went on the second weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And people kept going. So while it looked like it wasn't going to make its money, it eventually more than tripled. So it looks like it might be approaching like $500 million probably by the time, because this movie seemed to resonate with people so much that I could imagine that physical copies will probably be very meaningful for this particular movie as well.
Absolutely.
And Ryan Coogler, I want to talk about Coogler before we really get into the movie. We're talking about literally 13 movies. So it's not going to be like our individual episodes where we break it down so specifically. But thinking about Coogler and where he's at now in Hollywood, and he's already had a $1 billion movie in The Black Panther, which we did review for the show. But I'm really surprised. He's kind of become, I would rank him somewhere in like the James Cameron and what's his name, who did why am I forgetting fucking everything? He did the Batman trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy. Christopher Nolan.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
I think Ryan Coogler has now found himself kind of in that status of filmmaker, where a guy who, even though the movie landscape seems to be so more sparse, but somehow Coogler has arrived to a point where he is like kind of a prestige director where people are just curious enough to go check out what he does now. And for a guy who's reached that point, like he has a lot of, he has like maybe like less than half a dozen movies out there, but since the Black Panther like exploded, he's had this cultural resonance, particularly within the black community. The black community came out for Sinners quite a bit, and I think there is something great about the musical aspects of this movie and how I mean, it's about vampires, right? It takes place in the 1930s with these brothers who are both played by Michael B. Jordan, Smoke and Stack. Though I remember when I was watching the movie, I just stopped bothering trying to figure out which one was which, because they are essentially the same. They act pretty much the same, except for who they pursued in their love interest, which was pretty passionate when that was represented.
That is very true. They did a smart thing with this movie in that they set everything up and we got to know all of the people before we got to the vampires. And these guys were brothers and twins, but they did split them off also for a chunk of that first bit of the movie, so that you knew that one guy was with their little cousin riding around, and right. That's who
the cousin himself is like a little blues singer.
Yes.
So the movie is really about, like, it's very much a musical appreciation movie. So that character, he's such a quiet character, but everything is kind of revolving around him at the same time, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
But I have to question, I get it for Michael B. Jordan, and he is accepting something that's cool and interesting and gets to play two different characters that are essentially the same character, but until something happens in the movie. But do you think that was, like, I get the audacity of it, and I get why that would be intriguing for Michael B. Jordan himself. But do you think that role would have been better if it was actually a different actor? Like, maybe they could have played off of each other in a lot more of an emotional way?
Yes, they wouldn't have had, they don't have to be twins. There's no reason for them to be twins. They could have just been brothers. That, to me, felt like Ryan Coogler wanted to do it. And he wanted to give that opportunity to Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
And I thought he did a good job, but you're right. They're not different enough to tell them apart when they're in the same space together. A lot of times you can tell based on which lady they're with, but there's one particular scene in the juke joint where the brother who's not with Haley Steinfeld goes to get her, and I got very confused about who we were dealing with then, because jackets were on and off and hats were on and off.
Their hats were a little different. Like,
one of them had a gold tooth, I think, and that was like a hint, but
I do think that is kind of a flaw of the movie. Like, it's kind of like, I like the audaciousness of it, right? But at the same time, like, I do think there could have been a lot more emotional resonance if there was a different actor playing one of the brothers, that they wouldn't have to cut around, wouldn't have to effects around.
Mm-hmm.
And another complaint about the movie, and then we'll be all compliments, is that it was a little overcooked in the sense of, like, some of the flashbacks. Like, it would flash back in the movie to the stuff you've seen in the movie, and that was a little bit too much for me. It's almost like I'm, especially towards the end when it's flashing back to, like, remember the racist hog's dick, whatever that the Klansman's name is that sold in the juke joint.
Yeah.
Spoilers, by the way. There will be spoilers. We're not
always.
But
we always do spoilers.
Where they had to remind us that he is like a racist. Like, yeah, we know, but we did get that, like, euphoric scene where he kills a bunch of Klansmen, which is cool. But yeah, there was some flashbacking that was just a little too much. But then there was flashbacking that was done in a way that was so fucking good. Like when they first get Delroy Lindo's character and they're rolling into the town in Mississippi, and Delroy Lindo his character is speaking of this guy that got captured and lynched and telling the story of him. It's this guy he knew. And you could hear the sounds of a lynch mob as they're going down the street. That shit was so good. That's what's... I mean, this movie is pretty much lives up to the hype, even though I do think there's some overcookedness to it, because there are moments in this movie that are actually fucking great.
Yes.
And there's a scene where the Sammy, preacher boy, it's played by Miles Catton, where he plays the blues, and there's a couple of scenes of him singing.
Somebody take me in your arms tonight. All right. Somebody take me in your arms tonight. Yeah, yeah. Somebody take me in your arms tonight.
And there's one that seems to where the concept that Coogler is presenting here is that his music is just running through time.
That there are certain people throughout the generations and in all cultures who are these storytellers who, when they make music, it transcends time. Yes, and so that is my favorite scene in the whole movie.
And this is played against vampires, who are this seductive creature who can live for a long time unless you stake them or put them in
who also
sunlight.
use music not only to lure you, but it's part of the celebration. This is maybe the first time, one of the few times that the vampires are straightforward of, we are a cult. Come with us. We're going to be happy. We're all a big family. It's euphoric, and they're dancing and singing and laughing, and it's great. I did want to mention real quick, one of the criticism I keep hearing is that Haley Steinfeld is white. Except, I've corrected so many people on this fact, and I just want to put it on the podcast, that in the movie, Haley Steinfeld says that her mother's father was black.
Okay.
Or half black. Whatever it is, I can't remember now because it's been a minute. She is truly the same percentage black as the character that she is playing. She doesn't look black, but that's the whole point of also this character, is that she passes.
Yeah. So it is like, racially, she is just like the character in the movie.
Yes.
But she does pass as white.
And not that even really matters, but that's for some reason one of the negatives I've heard in the world.
And that's... I mean, I think I could understand the argument of that she's essentially white because she would pass white into the world. And race is an absurd construct in and of itself. It's not necessarily representative of the nuances of who we are, but how we are perceived and judged.
Yeah.
And the concept of race is stupid, but because some asshole invented it and now applied it globally, somehow culturally, we're all forced to contend with it. But what's interesting is that the character of Remick is played by Jack O'Connell, the head vampire. He and I did see a lot of stuff, and I heard Ryan Coogler explain himself in an interview that this character predates that concept.
Yeah.
Because when he appears at this house where there's these races, like this couple that are in the clan, and he turns them. Mm-hmm. But when he's asking to help them out, he mentions that he's being chased. He doesn't say like Indian or like a slur for Indian. He says their tribe. He says Choctaw are chasing me. By the way, the Choctaw, like that's a whole other side movie, right?
Yeah.
Like we barely see the Choctaw, but there's something about how they're hunting them that could be a movie in and of itself, right? So when he turns these Klansmen, they become a part of this kind of collective idea. And there is something very appealing, even if you don't want to go with them or be an undead creature of the night, because Remick doesn't give a fuck about race. Mm-hmm.
Or gender, because it's a man and a woman. Because
they all transcend that idea into this collective consciousness. And, I mean, there are, some downsides. You can't go out during the day and shit. But when he turns people, it's like they all become this collective mind. Like, they all know everything about each other. And they want to get Miles Catton, particularly the Sammy Preacher Boy character, because he's a musician.
Yes.
And that is like the best way to kind of pull in people.
Well, but not only because he's a musician, because he is one of these extraordinary storytellers that comes once in a generation. He says at some point, I believe it's that he wants to be able to use him to reconnect with his own roots.
Yeah.
Because he knows that Sammy's music can span time and space. It doesn't matter. The scene where Sammy's playing and all of these different people from these different cultures and from current day now and from even farther ago and in these like ritual outfits and different things, it is one of the most beautiful scenes. And it could have been so crazy, but I really feel like it was done well. You could have laughed at a kid with like headphones dancing, you know,
it's like
in the middle of these folks, but you don't.
It does feel like it almost didn't work. Like it almost didn't work, but like it did.
He was very careful.
But there is a scene that I honestly think is 10 times even better than that scene. That's musical, where after they lure some of the people in the juke joint count, and a lot of the people in the juke joint, it's a huge black cast, and like most of them get turned into vampires. And it cuts to Remick and the people he's turned, and a lot of the people that he's turned that stepped out of the juke joint, and they all start singing
and dancing.
This scene alone is a fucking masterpiece. Yes. And when he starts doing like the jig dancing, like I swear to God, I felt the hills. Like for all like, you know, whatever you think about this movie, I do understand certain criticisms, some ups and downs. Like there's just something about that particular scene that like Coogler knocked it out of the park.
That is the first image I think of when I think of this movie, because it shows these characters who have been dealing with issues and they've been upset and there's been all this relationship stuff and race stuff happening, and they are just glowing with happiness. Like they've become part of something that is bigger than everyone, and they truly want to share it with everyone else. It's crazy that this hasn't been explored in this way before. I love vampire movies. I love this concept so much.
And as much as the temptation of the vampire works, there is something to pull back because, you know, the people who are trying to resist them, they have this identity of their own music and their own blackness, which is tempting to be a part of something that looks beyond that. But at the same time, through matters beyond their control, they are put into a position to where they have to preserve their self, their individual blackness, because that's the position that they were put into. So they're so desperately trying to maintain that at the same time, even though Remick seems to be presenting something that, if you really think about it, seems kind of like a decent deal.
Except they're so happy. It feels manic. And so it feels evil. It's so happy that it feels wrong.
Yeah. One good way that you can tell the twins apart, and I figured this out when I was, because their names are Smoke and Stack. And, but one thing you can, and they used to work for Al Capone in Chicago, right?
Right.
But Smoke gets smoked at the end in the big firefight, and Stack, who gets turned, lives on, and we see him come back later, and he's stacking bills. He's blinged out, right?
This is another situation where it could have been too cheesy, is that this whole movie ends, most everybody turns into a vampire, but Smoke has this shootout and kills all of these Klansmen who are planning on coming and killing all of his folks. And then we jump forward and you see that Sammy has had this career. He spared Sammy. They spared Sammy. Sammy has had this career. He's lived so long and he's made so much music. He has this, his own place that he named after the woman he fell in love with that night, Perline.
Yeah.
And he's sitting at the bar and you can tell he's almost done, right? He's almost finished with his life. And in comes Stack and Haley. I can't remember what her name is in this movie, but they look fucking great, and it's like the 80s.
But they're very modern, like very much like in wrapped up in a hip-hop style and stuff like that.
And this is when we find out that Smoke made Stack promise to leave Sammy alone, to not ever go see him. Don't let him know that I let you live, because Smoke just couldn't kill his brother. And so he comes in and he says, you know, we wanted to come and see you, but we made this promise. But we thought it had been enough time, and we wanted to actually say, if you don't want to go, if you want to be with us, we can make that happen.
Which he is like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
But another aspect of the movie, which I don't think it was necessarily bad, but it seemed like it was just kind of like pushing through it to get maybe to that point or get to the Klansman shootout thing, where when they were, killing the vampires, and it seemed like a lot of them were going down a little quite easy for what they were,
Yeah.
And I mean, it was cool because you're just at the action horror movie and there's got to be some kind of climax, but it's just leading up to when they're like surrounding the place. Like the movie really peaked so hard at that point, and it peaked so well. And that scene that I was talking about that I fucking love, maybe one of the best scenes in any movie you could see. Like, if you want to pull any scene, that Remick dance scene is like dope. But I couldn't really, in trying to pull clips for this, I couldn't find it because the movie's still kind of in theaters. But I was kind of glad I didn't, because that really is a scene that should be experienced in the theater. And I ain't lying when I said I thought I felt the hills in that one, man. Like, it was like something else. But,
it was wonderful.
But we're gonna let's go ahead and give a quick review of Sinners. And I think I stop at a 4, but because that scene is so masterful, I'm gonna go 4.25.
Same. So 9.5.
And 8.5.
8.5. Sorry about that. 8.5.
And that is Sinners. And anyone who's probably interested has probably seen it, but like there is things and it's a great going to the movies experience too. And this movie was shown in different size theaters. I showed you a picture of it being shown in like 70 millimeter in this massive screen.
Yeah.
And I think Sinners is I'm happy for the success of Sinners because that's good for the movies. And this is an original story, you know?
Yes.
So that's what's the most important. Now, let's talk about another movie that's a lot more indie. We went to our Bell Court. We're talking about the late-stage Cronenberg film, The Shrouds. This is an interesting movie. Now, with Cronenberg and the way he's dealing with technology in modern times, this is there's something very current about this movie. And he does have other movies that feel pretty current, too. Like, I feel like Crash was current in its observance of its obsession of the past. And, maybe like, it's been so long since I've seen Videodrome. I feel like I just need to see it again. But I know, like, thinking about the concept of tech, that is now outdated. But at that time when it was like, I think that movie came out in a time where videotapes were like $50 a pop, right? Yeah. So there was something about it then. But it's, let me pull
Crimes of the Future was like post-apocalyptic.
Yes.
This one feels future, but only maybe 5-10 years in the future from now.
This one is written by Cronenberg, and it stars Vincent Cassel, very prolific French actor. Diane Kruger. If you like MILFs, if you like big titty MILFs with the mommy milkers, this is a pretty good one to go check out.
Is she already a MILF?
Yeah, she's a MILF. Diane
MILF.
Kruger?
Yeah.
She was like a middle-aged woman in this movie.
She was. She just...
Anyway.
I think as I get older, people don't seem as old to me.
MILF hunters, that's true. We're like pretty much middle-aged, right? Guy Pearce and Sandrine Holt, among others. Cinematography by Douglas Koch. And this is a Canadian film. Box office, not very much, but you would expect that. Now, we love some Cronenberg, but we haven't been going to a lot of his movies that have been coming out in the last 10 years, but I really wanted to go check this out. And this movie is current in the sense that there is a lot of tech-based thing, but it's this new idea. And apparently it's based upon, the idea came from the passing of his wife who had cancer. So there's a personability there. And I mean, David Cronenberg himself is he's 80 years old. And the concept here is that Vincent Cassel is the kind of like this tech guru guy who, he has these cemeteries in which the bodies are shrouded, and the shrouds cover people. They're like cameras essentially that can monitor the whole body. So you can go up to a special tombstone that they've designed, that his character has designed,
that only you can access as the family member.
It's and through an app as well. Mm-hmm. And you can watch your loved ones decay over time. And the Vincent Cassel character is, let me pull up the cast here. Karsh is his name. He finds great comfort in watching his wife decay. But then something happens to where his cemeteries become vandalized, and then there becomes this big question of what's going on. And his wife has a twin sister who's played by Diane Kruger, his late wife's twin sister.
I don't know if they're twins. I think she's the little sister, but still, it's close. They look the same. They're the same person.
And she's like the ex-wife of Guy Pearce's character of Maury, who... Now, I gotta be honest, like, the acting here felt like... You maybe kind of expected in a Cronenberg movie, but there was a lot of, like, stiff-ass line delivery here.
Yeah.
There's like, a web here that, like, is... Like, I followed it, but it almost seemed silly.
As soon as it was over, the first thought I had was, what the fuck was he doing? And then when you told me that he had gone through losing his wife to cancer and this whole personal tragedy, it then made sense to me because this movie, there is no ending. Like,
Right.
There's nothing is wrapped up. Not a single thing is wrapped up. What happens all through it is more and more there are people or things that he blames or says, well, maybe it was this, and maybe this is who got the cemetery messed up. Maybe this is who did this or that. And everyone seems to be having all these theories. You don't know who's telling you the truth. And to me, it's that feeling of something terrible has happened. I have lost something. No one understands me, and I want to blame someone, but there is no one to blame, and so there's never like an actual answer.
Yeah, there is an intrigue to the movie, but it's so fucking vague and it's very explained. And I got to be honest, the average moviegoer will probably sit through this and be like, "That's fucking boring as shit." And I admire the weirdness of the movie, but I don't know if I could debate that very well with him. It's like, I get it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, but truly, I mean, Vincent Cassel, he's got some good accolades himself, but there's just something about the way some of this dialogue goes. But you can almost imagine that some emotionally dissonant tech guy that would come up with this concept might kind of come off like weird like that anyway. But Guy Pearce seems to be the person who's really doing a lot of the acting heavy lifting. Like he does appear to be the guy that's really trying to hit something that is just maybe a little bit deeper than how he may talk as a regular person, right? But yeah, I don't even know if I could explain the end. Like, there's this idea that maybe some people did this, and there's this app icon thing that he talks to named Jenny that looks like something from Honey.
And also played by Diane Kruger.
And it looks like something from like the fucking Sims.
What are you doing, Karsh?
I wanted to know what it felt like to be wrapped, to be shrouded.
She didn't feel it. It's not meant for the living.
Maybe not meant for the dead either. Might be a big mistake.
And as soon as you see it, it's like, well, there's something weird with that. Something's going to be weird with that.
There is something weird with that. That's why I said it feels just a little bit in the future, because people are starting to have these like AI assistants or using like all of the chat GBT stuff more and more. This is like a step before her, because this little app, we'll find out later that it's being manipulated by an actual person. But the idea is that this assistant who is completely made up is jealous of the other women in his life and wants to be with him.
Yeah, and it seems very obvious that she's sabotaging in some way, but then it's revealed that there's something behind her, like she's actually someone in the movie.
It's Guy Pearce.
It's Guy Pearce.
Oh, spoilers.
Spoilers. The only aspect of this movie that does note to something in the near future, and I thought this was very funny, was when they mention watching something in 8K.
No, that's
now,
right.
like, I'm sure 8K is coming. You know, I'm sure 8K is coming.
But we haven't had 6 and 7,
but we're not quite.
Right?
If you're a Cronenberg sicko, I mean, check it out. But if you're just a normal person who only saw The Fly, I don't know. I mean, you know.
Just go back and watch The Fly again or watch Crimes of the Future.
I want to watch this movie again, but I want to go down to your parents' house.
Oh, God.
And we're going to go down to Florida where your parents live. We're going to put this movie on. And when the movie ends, we're going to turn to your parents and say, we're going to do this to you.
If my mom...
We're going to do this to you, and we're going to set up a website where we can watch you in the grave and your shrouds. And the website is www.pornhub.com/Angela'sParents.com. Be on the lookout. They're still with us.
They are still with us.
It's going to be some time, but we're going to shroud your parents up.
I think my dad would stick out through the end of the movie. I think if my mom didn't walk away immediately, she would definitely be gone when Vincent starts seeing his dead ex-wife falling apart.
Yeah, your dad would be there. I think it would be like Diane Kruger's Mommy Milkers would keep your dad in it, for sure, I think.
I don't want to think about it like that.
You don't want to think about your dad getting horned up looking at
Stop
titties.
it. Stop it.
He's just a human. He's a man, flesh and blood.
Yeah, but he's my dad, so I don't want to think about it.
The Shrouds, what do you give it?
I'm going to give it a 3.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I don't think it's mid.
No, it's a little above mid.
We do lean more towards sickos for the Cronenberg stuff.
But I shouldn't need to go and then do research about Cronenberg's personal life to feel like I understand the film that I just watched. Because, no joke, I hated it until I knew.
Really?
Okay, hate's a strong word, and I know I need to stop doing these, like, extreme responses to things.
Very hyperbolic.
I did not hate it. I was disappointed. And then when I learned that, it put it all in perspective for me. I would like to watch it again knowing that. I think it would make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm a 3 as well. And I think that's pretty generous.
Let's talk about one of the funniest movies we've ever seen.
That's what everyone's saying. It's like that this changed their comedy world.
I've never laughed this much out loud in a theater. I don't think.
Yeah, and you were laughing in the Shrouds.
I was not.
But actually, we were laughing at some of that dialogue. But
no, that's true. There were some weird moments.
But we're talking about the movie Friendship, directed and written by Andrew DeYoung, starring Tim Robinson, Kate Mara, Jack Dylan Grazer, Paul Rudd, cinematography by Andy Radzewski. It's an A24 movie. And it seemed, so far, according to Wikipedia, it's made about $4.4 million. Which I wish it did a little better. I mean, it's still in the theaters.
This weekend, I believe it was being released more nationally as we record
so hopefully
this.
It'll grow. Now, Tim Robinson in this was in that show.
I think you should leave now.
You sure about that? You sure about that? You sure about that?
I think you should leave.
Oh.
And which has become this, like, kind of a cornerstone show for, like, a generation, maybe like a Gen Z or a younger millennial. Like, I know a lot of people in my age range and younger that do love that show. And this movie does have that same kind of comedic feel, the Tim Robinson-ness. And when we went to go see it, it was released in kind of indie theaters before a bigger release, so we were in that time. The crowd was pretty loaded for a 9:15 show, and full of people around that age range, which I had stated.
The show at 7 had sold out completely,
Yeah.
way ahead of time.
And I was really excited to see like a good comedy too. It's been a long time since I've seen like a good comedy in the theater. So, and yeah, this is a very funny movie, but it does have that, like, it does feel like a long extension of an I Think You Should Leave sketch. And so I think a lot of people in the audience who are aware of Tim Robinson and who has been thoroughly memed at this point, and like you can kind of see the image of his crazy insecure characters like all over the internet, even if you haven't seen that show.
I haven't seen much of it, honestly. I haven't seen the show, and I haven't seen much of his stuff on the internet.
But it's become culturally big enough that you recognize where that's from, even though you haven't really sat with that show. And
I knew kind of what to expect from him.
So I felt like we were in a crowd that was thoroughly Tim-pilled, right?
Yeah.
But I think that is probably the best way to see the movie, and it seemed like a lot of people were having a good time. But it's about a character, Craig Waterman, who befriends this insecure weatherman named Austin Carmichael, is played by Paul Rudd, and he's married to Kate Mara, and they have a son. And the movie starts, and it reveals, Kate Mara reveals that she just beat cancer, and also hilariously reveals how bad her sex life is, and she's worried she'll never have an orgasm again. And she's friends with her ex-boyfriend, and she always calls him ex-boyfriend. So there's a lot of this sadness that is like an absurd comedy that represents the sadness and the individual loneliness of all these characters. And that's kind of what I Think You Should Leave and the Tim Robinson persona comedy embodies, is what what you could call what they keep calling this male loneliness epidemic, right? Which is often centered around white men who are getting older, who, you know, as much as things may seem so reactionary and right wing in positions of power, it does seem like demographics are shifting away from white maleness being the center of everything. I mean, I'm a white male, and my dick's the center of
I mean, okay,
this shit. You know
still.
what I'm saying? But even without like falling into these dumb reactionary tropes and like complain, but like there's that incel culture and stuff. These certain things that where people are just, it just seems like there's a lot of like cries for help, and then there's also the problems of overall economic insecurity that affects everyone that is contributing to all this. And I think a lot of what Tim Robinson's comedy and a lot of what you see in this movie Friendship here are just like the absurd comedic reactions of like lonely men who are desperate to seem cool and affecting to other people's lives, but can't get past. But you can see just under the surface how deeply insecure they are.
There's also a running commentary on technology and how much we rely on technology. And he doesn't have any friends at the beginning. His wife actually says to him, you should go say hi to the neighbors. They dropped off these pears or whatever. And he says, oh, no, I'm good. And she's like, you sit in that chair and look at your phone all night, every night. He works for a company that develops apps. His job is to think about all day how to make people look at their phones more.
Yeah.
So that is, I know there's the male loneliness, but I have actually also heard it talked more broadly about just a loneliness epidemic with everyone.
Yes. And
but again, the male white guys have to make it about them. But everyone is dealing with this right now.
But I do think there's a truth to it, and even not falling into this hating women pattern that a lot of men do, or blame minorities or whatever the fuck they do to make themselves feel better, which doesn't ever work in the first place.
Yeah.
That I do have this feeling of like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Life is maybe passing me by a little bit. I do feel a little lost, and like you don't really, and there you got to understand that maybe there are people are feeling that know better than to really blame anyone but themselves, but that doesn't mean they're not like having that experience themselves.
Well, so what a lot of people are doing, I mean, you're introspective, but there are a lot of people who just push those thoughts away and go into their phone every time and only.
Yeah.
When they feel any of that, it's getting validation online. Not that everyone doesn't do it to an extent, but because of how accessible that is, it's a drug. It's a dopamine addiction.
So everything
we're farther apart.
Just think of everything we're talking about, but with funny jokes and big laughs.
So funny.
Be yourself. You're a freaking prince. Thought it was open.
You hit that hard.
Can I use your restroom really fast?
And absurdity in this way that there are moments when I didn't believe the things we were watching was actually happening.
It does have this surreal nature to it, which I like.
There is also a moment at the end where
he kind of fantasizes about something different.
He tries to end the story in a different way than it ends.
Paul Rudd, that's probably one of my favorite Paul Rudd characters I've seen in a long time, because Austin Carmichael, he's a weatherman, but he's just as pathetic as the Craig Waterman character. And there's a part where they end up splitting off from each other, and Austin is trying to avoid Craig. Mm-hmm. But Austin is like lame as shit himself. And you think of almost like how a younger Gen X, older millennial type would be like, hey, come see me in my punk band. And you see this guy in like middle age, like playing punk rock songs, and he's pining over like these sports cars, and he's like saying like shit like, yeah, just eat these mushrooms, man. And he's saying like this cliched shit, and Craig just eats it up. But Craig, because he's so fucking lost, and obviously more absurd and lonely, he does not see that he is just as much bullshit as Craig is. But it's just sadness all the way down, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's hard to convey like the humor of it all. I do recommend you go watch this, and this is a particular movie that I think would actually probably improve over time.
Yes.
And with some rewatches, this movie does deserve like a pretty broad cult status at least.
I definitely want to see it again, and there's no point in us talking about the bits of it because it is so brilliant. We'll never do it justice.
Yeah, right.
You can't, retell a joke.
Although there was this point, and I forget what character this was, where Craig is. I think he was talking when he was in the basement in the drum set, and he's talking to that guy who just. But I believe
he tries to have some coworkers over.
I forget who exactly it was. Maybe it was that guy, but the guy goes, "My name is Jim. It's Jum with an I," and that shit made me laugh so hard. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold.
It's jump with an I.
Is Jimp?
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's even weirder than I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought
you just weren't enunciating. His name is Jimp.
Jimp?
Like jump
with an I. See, it's just absurd in a completely different way than I even thought.
Yeah, because it goes back and forth. Like Jim, he says Jimp, he says Jim. No, Jump.
Jump.
Yeah.
Jump with an I.
I do also think one of the most brilliant things is when he does try to take a mind-altering drug, and he's so disconnected from pleasure and adventure and spontaneity that his entire trip is him going to Subway and getting a sandwich from an old Paul Rudd. It's insane.
But I think
But also, how much money did Subway give them?
Because a kid sold him a toad lick. But I don't think the toad did anything.
I mean, that's a thing.
I think he just fell asleep and dreamed he went to Subway.
Maybe, but the toad thing is real.
Anyway, go see Friendship. It made us laugh quite a bit.
John Glazer is in this movie.
And we glazed John Glazer. How much do you give? I'm going to give Friendship, I don't know, I haven't seen a movie this funny in the theater in a long time, so maybe I'm Tim Pilled, but I'm going to go 4.25.
Oh, I'm going 4.5.
Oh, wow. So we really like this one. This one seemed special. This got a higher score than Sinners.
I have not laughed out loud this much, and it really feels like, again, it's an original story. It feels so now.
Yeah.
It feels like it was made for us. Again, we are those millennial kids who are in that set kids. Old people who are in that same boat, but it just hit on so many levels. It was so absurd.
So we mentioned when we were after Gene Hackman had passed, we were talking about the Oscar picks, and we were talking about how we were going to watch that, and we ended the show talking about how we were going to go watch The French Connection for the first time, and we did that. God, it was literally 2 months ago when we watched it, but that was the first time I'd seen The French Connection, and I'll just go ahead and say, to echo as they've been saying for decades, this movie won Best Picture in its day in 1971. I think The French Connection is a 5. It's a fantastic movie. But I think that what I want to ask, what I'm curious about, and when I was doing a little research before this recording, was I wanted to see how people perceived The French Connection and Popeye Doyle. And William Friedkin, based the story of The French Connection off of something that actually happened. But it was a loose interpretation.
I was reading that, but it truly says who each character was based on.
Yeah. And, during that time, a lot of heroin that was coming into the East Coast did go through France. But there was one thing that's funny is that when they cast Fernando Rey, who we saw in That Obscure Object of Desire by Louis Buñuel.
Yes.
That they actually thought they were casting a different guy from a different Louis Buñuel movie.
Oh my God.
That Obscure Object of Desire actually came out about 5-6 years after this movie.
Yeah.
But they thought they were getting a different guy from a Louis Buñuel movie. And then they ended up with Fernando Rey, but they just stuck with him. And
good.
And apparently they went through a lot of people. I think the studios wanted Paul Newman to play Popeye Doyle, but he was too expensive. They tried multiple people until it got to Gene Hackman, And you can't even imagine anyone but Gene Hackman playing that fucking role. But what I wanted to know is that movie was so fucking big that how people perceived it. And because it was so big, I can imagine it was misperceived. When I read some reviews going back, and people were marveling about the subway when Popeye Doyle is in the car. Scene. Well, there's the scene where he's chasing Fernando Rey on the subway by foot, and Fernando Rey's like, I got your ass.
Yeah, he just keeps going in and out.
And
it's great.
And then there's the car chase scene where he's tracking the subway at the end. And a lot of the reviews were like, those were just amazing fucking scenes. And yes, they were. So a lot of people were talking about the action and stuff. And almost like this movie, like the post-noir, the neo-noir thing was already going, but it seemed like the French Connection really became a pillar of what a neo-noir would be, like a modern noir, past all that classic period that we like. But it seemed like people were just talking more about the action and stuff. But the Popeye Doyle character is like, he's an openly racist character in this movie. And it seems to me that it is a criticism of over-policing and the police as being like almost like this gang that targets minorities. And we see him do that going into a bar that's predominantly black. And I know I read a review by Pauline Kael, famous critic, and she was someone who wasn't like, she didn't glaze this movie very much at the time because she almost saw the racism. She called out the racism and almost pointed out like it may have been encouraging it. And I think I can understand how she might react to it, thinking that based upon how people maybe reacted with enthusiasm while not thinking much about it. But this movie isn't like Dirty Harry or Death Wish in that those are actually like reactionary movies that, like, if you're a conservative guy, you would maybe watch those and be like, yeah, those punks get theirs. But Popeye Doyle is openly racist, and he's so hair-triggered that he ends up shooting one of his fellow officers at the end of the movie while they're trying to corner this guy into a building, which seems like, and when Roy Scheider's character calls him on it,
Mulder. You shot Mulder. The son of a bitch is here. I saw him. I'm gonna get him.
He doesn't even give a fuck that he shot one of his fellow cops, right? And
he's not a hero.
Yeah, and I feel like Friedkin was very obvious about that. But it was funny because apparently these are a lot of the cops that a lot of these characters are based on were apparently around the set when Friedkin made this movie, including the guy that Popeye Doyle was based on. And the cops got mad when near the end when Popeye Doyle shoots a guy in the back. And the cops say, and a lot of the cops say, no, we'd never do that. We wouldn't do that. But what's funny is that the guy who Popeye Doyle is based upon never said shit.
Of course.
Now think of all the stuff you see Popeye Doyle do in this movie, all the racist shit he does. He fucking kills a cop accidentally, doesn't even give a fuck. And this guy who knows this character is him, essentially, he just sits there like, yeah, whatever. You know?
I mean, that's what the character would have done too. That's how
all these cops are
good it is.
Complaining, but the guy who looks the worst said nothing.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating to me. So fascinating. But yeah, I mean, French Connection, it's a 5.
Yeah, it's an S tier.
But I'm curious, like this isn't like Dirty Harry, you know, it's not like, or Death Wish, you know, like, but I could see people misinterpreting it like that. Like, it's easy to misinterpret culture, especially when it becomes so big as the French Connection was, especially as it becomes so larger than life. But maybe it's just my modern sensibility is looking at it. It just seemed obvious that it was a critique of the police just as much as it would be about criminality or anything. And Friedkin, I mean, I want to watch more William Friedkin.
Yeah.
I mean, I've become a little obsessed with him. We've got a few more movies. We got Sorcerer on Blu-ray, which I've been wanting to watch for a long time. Which I think Roy Scheider's in that one too, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah. So There's not much more we can add to the French Connection, but I can't help but wonder about its perception in and of itself. But I think it's an obvious 5, and it still is after all these years. So.
Oh, we didn't talk about the car. That was fucking cool. That was my favorite scene.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool. Under Fire.
Now, yeah, we wanted to watch. We were watching, looking up Gene Hackman starring movies, and technically, he might be. I think Nick Nolte is top billed on this next one. But Gene Hackman was so big that even if he's like the character you see the least in the next couple of these movies, he's still ranked pretty high. But
well,
yeah,
and he plays the most amazing characters.
But we also watched the movie Under Fire, directed by Roger Spottiswoode, screenplay by Clayton Froman and Ron Shelton, based on a story by Clayton Froman. It stars Nick Nolte, Gene Hackman, Joanna Cassidy, Jean-Louis Trintignant, Richard Masur, and Ed Harris. Cinematography by John Alcott. And this movie is, it wasn't a big hit in its day, but it is based around, a rough draft basing around what happened in, I think it was Panama or some shit, where this ABC reporter by the name of Bill Stewart and his translator, Juan Espinosa, get gunned down by this government, and that helped to kind of take all that down. And this is essentially that as well, but Gene Hackman plays Alex Grazer, who is essentially in the stand-in role for Bill Stewart.
He's a journalist.
And we see, and Nick Nolte plays Russell Price, who's a photojournalist,
and he's cucking.
Gene
Hackman.
He is.
Yeah.
This is kind of like
it's a love triangle in midst of a war.
But no one really cares that much, though. It's vaguely polyamorous, right?
They kind of know. That's why it's a love triangle. It's not really I say cucked, but you're right. It is kind of polyamory, but it's a just don't talk about it situation.
I thought it was really funny, the parts where, I kind of like these kind of movies anyway, where when there's a firefight going on between the rebels and the government, and Nick Nolte's doing the cool, bouncing around the tops of the buildings, and it's like, it looks like you're standing in the line of fire, but he's and so he kind of swags like that. Nick Nolte does in this movie. But yeah, his character is cucking Gene Hackman's character with Claire Striders, played by Joanna Cassidy. But this movie is a very revolutionary film.
Wait a minute. Run us through 3 roadblocks a half an hour before curfew to Joseph's statue of Tacho.
It's not Tacho.
Huh?
It's Mussolini. See what happened is Tacho went to Italy to commission a statue of himself. He found a warehouse full of Valduces on horseback. Got a great deal on one, brought it back here. He switched heads. You can't tell, can you?
In a very lefty movie, I was kind of surprised to watch. But there are some great villains here. Jean-Louis Trintignant plays Marcel Jazzy, who's this kind of French dude who's very he's playing sides against each other and stuff, and he gives this great lecture about you think you're going to be doing all this good things, but there's no good deed good. I'm not doing much justice for that. This movie isn't very popular, so I couldn't find that speech as easily without ripping the whole fucking movie, right? But his character is really juicy in this movie. He ends up getting his ass killed. But a younger Ed Harris is in this movie, who plays a straight merc, who also, when the U.S. government then turns on the controlling government, then he literally switches to the rebel side at the very end.
Yeah, that's crazy. Also, Merc is mercenary?
Yeah.
Okay. And
he's kind of friends with the Nick Nolte character, but Nick Nolte's also trying to keep him from killing people, but won't rat on him. If you're a journalist, you're not supposed to just hand out the names of all your sources, but Nick Nolte is just so deep into this shit.
Well, and the Ed Harris character, it's almost comical how he just ends up being in all of exactly the same places. It's you're here. They're at someone's house at one point even.
Yeah.
And he's just there.
Yeah.
Don't know why.
He's
and
everywhere.
He's flipping sides, and he has to duck out certain times because he doesn't want people to see him talking to Nick Nolte, even though they're they know each other. I wouldn't say they're buddies, but
he's a good casual little villain who isn't the villain. Like, the villain is kind of more the dictator guy who I'm trying to recall if we don't even see him that much.
No, but we're in Nicaragua.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like kind of the culminating thing is that the Nicaraguan troops kill our journalist, and the dictator says that it's rebels that did it. And
but
Nick Nolte has to like run for his life and has the proof, so they get out.
And they have to smuggle it, and he's getting help from the rebels. And, you know, it's not a perfect movie by any means. There is certain aspects about it, but like it is just kind of one of those, like, it's just the kind of movie I like, you know? So, I mean, if we're going to rate it, I think I'd give it like a 3.25 for me.
3.
Yeah, so 6.25. I think that's a pretty fair score for Under Fire. 1983.
Gotta love seeing Joanna Cassidy show up.
Now, this next movie, which, I mean, Gene Hackman was a busy man in the early 70s, and this came out the year after French Connection, and I think this is Gene Hackman's follow-up. After French Connection, he did The Poseidon Adventure, and then he played a crooked cop who forces a young upcoming actor by the name of Kris Kristofferson
in his first feature-length role, right?
Yeah, he had a bit role in a movie before this, but yes, this is his first starring role. But we're talking about the movie Cisco Pike, which has since become a cult film from 1972, directed and written by Bill Norton and also written by Robert Towne. Stars Gene Hackman, whose first build, Karen Black, the B-movie queen, right?
Oh, yes.
Kris Kristofferson, Viva, who was a Warhol lady, she's the pregnant lady.
I knew her from somewhere, and I never looked her up, but I've seen her. I've seen her face.
She was a part of the factory and all that.
This movie I actually really loved.
This movie's kind of fun, but it's kind of so meandering at the same time, right? And like, it is just kind of like, this movie does feel like a true stoner movie, and how all over and wandering it is. And our boy Harry Dean Stanton is also in this film.
Who he always adds a 0.25 or a 0.5 to every movie that he's in.
I think he does add a 0.5 to everything.
He's amazing. This movie, first of all, Kris Kristofferson is better with age and a beard.
Much like also the same as Gene passed away fairly recently, so I think it's kind of apropos. And I think, like, if you ask me what type of celebrity I would ever want to be like, Kris Kristofferson is like the fucking man, right? Like, he's this hard-nosed country guy. He actually had he's a guy that actually had a good education, but was a believable, like, rambling ne'er-do-well. Wrote some of the greatest country songs ever, like Sunday Morning Coming Down. And it was around this, like, I think it was just like a year or two before this, when he was working for the Tennessee National Guard and landed a helicopter in Johnny Cash's estate and was like, you need to record Sunday Morning Coming Down.
Oh my God.
So there's a lot of his come up as a songwriter and as an actor was kind of launching off at the same time, and as a musician as well. And he does play music in this movie. But there's this one part where whenever there was some tension in the movie, that there was this, like, music. I don't think it was a Kris Kristofferson thing that was going like, woo, 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 woo. I was like, that shit got annoying real quick.
Yeah, it was very bad. That was very bad. This movie was very interesting. Gene Hackman is always playing a bad guy. Or a narcissist, at least.
He's a crooked cop who busts tons of marijuana, but he wants to make money, and Kris Kristofferson just got out of jail.
And he stopped dealing, and Karen Black and he are like, we do not deal drugs anymore.
But Gene Hackman's character is like, if you sell this off for me and spot me the money, I think he offers like 10% of it or something.
It's like a lot of marijuana.
And that he would put in a word to, like, get his case thrown out.
I love also that at the time that this was made, a big pallet of marijuana was the scandalous thing. Now it would have to be cocaine or heroin.
This movie is a good study in how, like, and they kept calling this marijuana good shit. And sure, this is like,
but
this is like movie prop marijuana. I get that, but let me tell you, The kids are smoking so much better nowadays. Back then the cocaine was better than it was now, but now the weed is better now than it was then. And you're looking at them like standing around all this weed and looking at it, and it looks like stemmy ass grass, and they're like, "This is the good shit, man. This is the good shit." And I'm like, "Oh, this looks like the kind of weed that I had to meet some guy outside of a car wash in like 2001." To get, and it was like half fucking moldy. Sorry, I keep coughing. I'm getting over a sickness. But yes, he's trying to sell this weed. Karen Black doesn't like it.
Well, he tries to keep it from her, and he ends up just leaving and going off with whoever. He meets up with Viva, and she's like, "Oh yeah, what are you selling? Maybe I'll buy it. Oh, I know some people." And this is one of my favorite lines in a movie, maybe ever, is she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And he comments about the pregnancy, and she goes, "Oh yeah, I'm just holding it for someone." It was amazing. She is amazing.
He ends up going threesies with Viva and another girl. Mm-hmm. He's not very loyal to Karen
That girl
Black.
is adorable too.
Yeah.
She's like this little girl with like all this energy who's hot for Viva.
Yeah,
it's cute. It's so cute.
Yeah, and but that's fun. And poor guy, like I think Gene ends up getting shot down because he kind of overreacts.
He freaks out. It seems as though he is doing harder things than marijuana.
He seems like he's movie. He seems like he's taking the marijuana money and buying cocaine.
Exactly.
That's what Gene's character.
It really does.
Like.
At the end, things are going down, and doesn't he end up shooting at cops? And then he gets shot?
Yeah.
It's insane.
It is. The movie does meander.
Crazy paranoid.
And then it's like randomly wild, but this is like a true 70s stoner film.
Hackman also, his character in this is maybe the most interesting one of all these movies we've talked about to me, because he so badly wants Kris Kristofferson to sell this weed. That was our dog snoring, by the way.
You wouldn't hear it.
Okay, I just want to sound like a fart. He so badly wants Kris Kristofferson to sell this weed, and he keeps telling him, if you don't give me the money by X time, I'm gonna put you in jail and all this crazy stuff.
It's like, isn't it like 3 days or some shit?
It's like 3 days, but he fucking ruins a major cell.
Yeah.
Because he just like is standing on top of a building across the street, just watching them with binoculars, and the guy gets spooked.
You try to set me up.
I know, man. Hey, man, I don't know nothing about that. Who the hell is that? Hey, I'll call you.
Duh.
He's not a very
it's
good.
A bad idea.
He's not a very good crooked cop.
No.
But it does all, I guess, work out in the end. But
I mean,
I think he has to go on the run. But whatever.
Also, he shows up and threatens Karen.
Yeah.
Also, where she has to run out of the building, she doesn't know what's going on, and they all drive off. Like, she and him don't end up together at the end.
That's true.
He drives off on his own.
Bill Norton, the director of this movie, I got a couple of fun facts about that guy. His father was a screenwriter who got busted for smuggling arms for the IRA.
Ooh.
And Bill Norton also directed the movie. Do you remember this movie called Baby, Secret of the Lost Legend? It's about these people that go into the jungle and they find a baby brontosaurus.
I do know what you're talking about.
It's been so long.
Vague memory of that. Oh my gosh.
I got a story about that from when I was a kid. That was one of those movies alongside like Ernest Goes to Camp and Who Framed Roger Rabbit that I just rented and watched over and over. And I would rent that movie, and I don't know what, like, for some reason, when I was in elementary school, you could bring like a videotape to like a teacher at your elementary school, and if it was a down day at school, you could watch the movie. And I brought Baby Secret of the Lost Legend. I didn't even own it. Like it was a rental in that plastic VHS case. So I brought it to the teacher. I was like, "Can we watch this in the class? It's got dinosaurs in it." And they're like, "Okay, we'll maybe watch it tomorrow. Can I take it home?" And I was like, "Yeah." Teacher comes back the next day, and she explains to me that we cannot watch the movie. It was geared towards kids, but we couldn't watch the movie in the class because there are scenes in which they're in like an African jungle or something, and there are tribeswomen dancing around
who don't have shirts
and
on.
They're topless. And when I was a kid, I didn't think shit about it, right?
Because it's a natural thing.
It's only a problem if an adult tells you it's a problem.
Right.
And my grandmother she wasn't paying attention, right?
No.
But yeah, they were like, yeah, we can't watch this because there's titties in it. And I was like, oh. Like, I didn't even think about it. I was just like, there's dinosaurs in this movie. This movie's so cool. There's a dinosaur in it, and they're friends with the dinosaur, but we couldn't watch it because there's titties in it. But
we can watch it now if you want.
But I watched it at home. But Bill Norton directed that movie.
What do you give Cisco Pike?
I think there's something... The movie's weird, but I think it stuck with me a little bit. I'm going to give it a 3.5.
I'm going to give it a 4.
Whoa!
I really enjoyed it.
So
even though when I looked at this list, I was like, what movie is that? I just forgot that was his name. The fact that it's his name is really not a good choice when it's not an established character. Don't you think that? Like a movie title, it doesn't mean anything.
So Pluto Nash or anything like that, or Norbit.
Well, Norbit, I never saw.
I don't know if the title matters that much. I mean, this movie is such a deep cut cult thing.
This
anyway.
is a 7.5.
Yeah, for Cisco Pike.
It was fun.
Okay, now we got to get serious here.
Okay, we're gonna get real serious.
We've kind of been enjoying a lot of movies so far, but there was a movie that came out last year that got a lot of buzz. A horror film directed by the son of American acting great Anthony Perkins. We're talking about his boy, Osgood Perkins. And there's a movie called Longlegs. It stars Nicolas Cage, who, I don't know why he fucking looks like that, but he does. Why? That's not why. I know someone whose dear sweet parents went to see this movie because they love Nicolas Cage. And after the movie, she asked them, what did you think? And her dad truly said, I don't know where Nicolas Cage was. I never saw Nicolas Cage in this movie. Yeah, that is funny. One thing is, like, remember, like, Anthony Perkins' wife, I assume Osgood Perkins' mother, died in 9/11. She was on one of those planes. I did not know that. I think I did say that on an episode, but, you know, I don't remember. We talk about a lot of shit, so it's okay if you don't remember. I have listened to Osgood talking about his dad, and it's very interesting, their relationship. But yeah, did he know his dad pretty well? Yeah. Osgood's like, he's a little older for a debut movie. He's been around. He's a little bit older. Yeah, right? He's a little bit older. His parents stayed married also. Like, even though he knew his dad was gay at a point, it was kind of an unspoken thing. Yeah, like, and his mom and dad really loved each other. I don't know what their sexual life was like, but it's possible. According to him, like, they really did love and care. They were like best friends, at least. Now, we're talking about the movie Longlegs, written and directed by Osgood Perkins, starring Micah Monroe. You remember her from It Follows. Love her. A good horror movie. That's a great horror movie. Blair also stars Blair Underwood. I haven't seen him in a bit until this movie. Alicia Witt and Nicolas Cage as he's not. Is he Longlegs? He is Longlegs. He's Longlegs. Right? Who's a serial killer. This was put out by Neon Films. It ain't just A24 putting out the indie movies. Neon does it too. But this movie made bang. People seem to like this movie and made $128 million, but I did not like this movie. I didn't either. At all. I was so mad about this movie. There's something so like, this is like meandering and not in a fun Cisco Pike way, but it seems like it's trying to piece together this weird plot that doesn't work. And there's these shots that maybe you would objectively think like, oh, these are cool, interesting shots. But they just came off as, like, purposeless and lifeless. There's a point where I was like, why is it framed around the stairwell like that? And I know, and you kind of explained probably what they were going for, is that the idea is that you want to think that there's something peeking around, or when it slowly zoomed in. There was so much slow zoom in and zoom out, and so much flat, straightforward on the face shots. But I know they did that with this intention where you would expect something to pop up. He's trying to make you uncomfortable. But I never bought for a second that anything would pop up, and I was right. It was too obvious. Because the stairway thing in particular, Micah's only in a fourth of the screen or something, and the whole, like,
background is so visible, and there's not even, I don't think, anything on the wall. Like, it's just this spot where you expect there to be some creeper coming down.
And we're not, this isn't like, it's not coming through with any purpose, right? It's not like a fucking, what's that, like a Tarkovsky shot where there's like, where there's, everything means something, like it's composed in a certain way where there's a purpose. Like, it's like the movie is like an illusion of meaning here in the way it's shot. That just bugged the fuck out of me. Almost like where it's like and this movie seemed to, I know a lot of people kind of looked at it like it's a prestige movie because there's still like kind of technically way things are framed. But this is a good example of where something appears artful on the surface, but is actually completely hollow.
What it feels like is he's not found his own voice yet. He's emulating people that he admires, trying to do what they're doing, but that makes it feel false because it's not coming from him. I think in the future there could be good things from him, but he has to strip it away. One thing that I had heard, the only thing I really knew about this movie was that Nicolas Cage was in it, because that's the other thing. People weren't really talking about it. They were just like, you gotta see it.
Yeah.
But
I think it was just all about how weird he was.
Well, yes, but I read that this movie was essentially something that came separately to Osgood from the character of Longlegs. He had this character in his head for a long time. And then he was writing this movie and he's like, I just don't know what to do. Oh, I had that character. And it kind of feels that way. It feels like it could have been so many different big bads. It didn't need to be this guy. And when you get to the twist at the end,
so tacked.
lame as fuck,
so
man.
Tacked, man.
This
is this fucking last podcast on the left ass movie, man. I swear to God. Yeah, the movie is just like, it just felt like a bunch of like weirdness, a bunch of shots strung together that I'm supposed to think is like film school cool, but like it just was so unconvincing to me that it kind of just made me mad, especially as the plot unraveled and it felt like he's just sticking like square pegs in round holes just to get through it.
Are too many ideas. She is trying to be an FBI agent. She has these feelings about things.
Oh, right. She had fucking powers. God.
There's not a superhero. There's a serial killer who's leaving these cryptic messages, but we find out at the end he has to have been doing this for like 10 or 15 years at this point, but they're just starting to piece it together. And then you've got this whole what's going on in the basement of her house, what's going on with her mother. They're estrained. She's also estranged. She's also drinking. There's all this stuff going on, and it's like, it just needed a clear something. It needed something. Editing?
People talk this movie up. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. Watch more movies if you think this movie is good.
Even the Nicolas Cage
differentiate your
character.
Content. I mean, look, we love Nick Cage. I mean,
I do. I really do.
Yeah. We bow to the king. But there's plenty of times where Nick Cage is fine and the movie is not good. That happens all the time.
Yes.
That happens all the time. And I think this is a case of that.
Yeah.
But Nicolas Cage was asked if he'd ever play a role like this again. And he was like, nah, I don't like being that cynical. But apparently Osgood Perkins put out a movie called like Monkey. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
But no one is saying anything good about that movie. I think even people who like Longlegs are kind of like, what the fuck? But I haven't seen it, so we can't rate it. But if I'm going to rate Longlegs right now, I cannot go higher than 1. I do not. I do not think this movie made me kind of mad. It's like, bro, come on.
I agree with you. However, I'm thinking 1.5. So that's a 2.5. I also need to very quickly say that we gave Cisco Pike a 7.5, but it has to be an 8.
Because of
that is the
Harry
rule
Dean Stanton's
for Harry Dean Stanton.
And he overdoses on heroin in it. So
he sure does. That's sad. Now on to one of the most heartwarming.
Another Harry Dean Stanton
film.
We don't see him until the very end.
Doesn't matter.
Now, our local Barrel Court, our independent theater. Bell Court, where we saw Friendship. We saw they were doing a David Lynch retrospective, and we managed to go see a movie we hadn't seen. We could have watched it on Disney Plus if we wanted. But I was very happy to go to the theaters to watch the movie The Straight Story, which is based on a true story, and it's directed by David Lynch.
It's a Disney
G-rated movie.
Yeah, it was one of those that came on Sunday nights when we were kids, I'm sure, but I never saw it.
There's a lot of cigarette smoking in it,
Yeah.
which is, you could G-rate in 1999, but not now. There's a lot less of that now. But it's written by John Roach and Mary Sweeney, and it stars Richard Farnsworth, Sissy Spacek, Harry Dean Stanton. Cinematography by long-standing David Lynch partner Freddie Francis and a Hammer Horror alum.
Angelo Badalamenti.
And his music, Angelo Badalamenti, I love
He's a genius.
His music's always good. And yes, now this movie, again, for its day, very, did not hit its 10 million budget, but this movie floated around looking for its voice until David Lynch read the script and imagined the beauty of Midwestern America. And then he decided to help his friend Mary Sweeney and be like, yeah, I'll direct this movie.
We've talked about before, David Lynch is able to capture America and these pockets.
I think he's really one of the greatest.
Better than anyone.
You could put him up with, I think as far as like the great Americana directors, you could put him up with like a Frank Capra, somebody who might be put in that role. But I think he really just, he just runs it all. We see the horror, the seediness of America in his movies. We don't talk about it enough, but he's also very funny. There's a lot of funny shit throughout his movies as well. But his movies feel so very American the vast majority of the time, setting aside like another normal quote unquote David Lynch movie, The Elephant Man, which took place in England. But this one is, David said, and this was his most experimental film. And if you compare it with like everything else he does, that it does seem experimental for him. But this is based on a true story about a man named Alvin Straight who heard his brother was dying, and he rode a lawnmower across state lines to go see his brother before he died. And it's the same name in the movie. And Richard Farnsworth actually had prostate cancer while making this film and passed away not long after it wrapped.
But they've said he didn't tell a lot of people. He kept it to himself, but knowing that going into it, it adds this other layer to the insistence with which this man needs to get to his brother because he doesn't know how much time he has. And the brother, brilliantly played by Harry Dean Stanton, the scene when they finally get together is great because they haven't spoken in decades, I believe, and neither one of them remember why. Or they don't talk about it.
But David Lynch still manages to link this very down-to-earth story about middle America into this cosmic thing in which the brothers, like flashing back to where Richard Farnsworth character of Alvin, who was a real guy, they would watch the stars with their brother and just imagine the cosmos and what it would be like. And that's kind of how the movie pans into the stars. And I think what overwhelms me about this movie, and I cried when we watched this, is the true sincerity of it. And there's no cynicism in this movie, but also dealing with these older men, like a type of men who don't like asking for help, but are true men in their sense. And then, the scene where Richard Farnsworth is with that Vietnam vet and they're in that bar and they're talking about the horrible things they've seen and the things that they've done and the things that they regret. And I also really like how, nothing really too bad happens to people. Like, there's no, villain, right? There's no thing where somebody's just an over-the-top asshole.
Yeah, no.
It's just about Alvin Straight making these connections with people.
And the obstacles he has to get past. Yeah.
And the obstacles of being a very old man trying to make this journey on a lawnmower. And people are trying to give him better advice. And Sissy Spacek is in this movie. And
she plays his daughter.
Who's kind of some kind of a disability.
She seems like she's neurodivergent. She can be alone. but
she's kind of stuttering.
It's almost like she's thinking faster than she can actually get the words out sometimes. I don't know what she was emulating. They never say, but he does say to her at one point, she's basically like, don't leave me here by myself. And he's like, well, I'm not going to be around forever.
But it is revealed through Alvin, you know, as he's connected with people later on, and how much he loves his daughter, the things that she went through, and how she lost a child. Apparently, Sissy Spacek was friends with David Lynch and helped fund Eraserhead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That just made her even cooler.
I mean, she's, what, 3 Women? If y'all haven't seen 3 Women, we did an episode on that.
You gotta see 3
I fucking
Women.
love that movie so much. She's in that movie.
Also, she played Loretta Lynn. Like,
yeah, classic.
Fucking Coal Miner's Daughter. If you have not seen it, we've not talked about it on this show, but that is a good movie. I saw it in the Belcourt about a year and a half ago. So good. And I've seen it a million times. It doesn't matter.
But I think what you really get the feeling of in this movie is not just like the beauty of Middle America and the sincerity and how as the characters go through the hardships of their lives, that never overwhelms how people are connecting to each other. Like, there's a true beauty there, but there's also this reverence to the actual character of Alvin Strait. Like, this guy that we don't know personally and have never met, but you could just tell that everyone involved in this movie just had this admiration for this guy who was real in this story, and I'm kind of getting choked up just thinking about it.
No, I know. I mean, he interacts with different people along the way, and he's camping, he's sleeping outside.
Glamping, even.
He has to stop at one point because there's this very harrowing scene where he's going way too fast down a hill and he can't stop. I was terrified. Like, that's the brilliance of David Lynch. It wasn't like it was some big car chase or something. It was just this man who was out of control for a moment. And it was scary because you didn't want anything to happen to him because you already loved him so much. But he ends up staying at this folks' house and he won't stay inside. They offer him a room and he's like, no. I'll just camp in your yard if that's okay. But just these conversations he has with people, and he has this ability, and I can only imagine the real man must have been this way, to cut through the bullshit. People are themselves with him.
The movie did convince me that, like, Richard Farnsworth essentially was nailing Alvin Strait.
Absolutely.
The movie did convince me of that. And, I mean, this is just another example of how it just seemed, how similar to The Elephant Man, how David Lynch just seemed to so effortlessly nail the humanity of it. And it's just like he could have made, it just seems like David Lynch could have been so many different types of directors if he wanted to be.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a part of what makes him great. And this is a 5 for me. I think
too.
This is
an S tier. I mean, even, we don't even need the +5 for Harry Dean Stanton. This is an S, but it just reiterates to me how open David Lynch is to different kinds of people and different things. Like, sure, a lot of stuff he does is weird, but it's because he was still delighted in just learning about things. Uh-huh. And a lot of his more off-the-wall stuff came from him pondering, like, what is bigger than this? Why do people do the things that they do? And it's just very fascinating to see him do this movie. He could have been, if he wanted to, completely different kind of director with huge box office.
He could have been the Frank
films.
Capra guy. Yeah, totally. The modern.
Absolutely. He was a genius.
So yeah,
we love you. We miss you, David Lynch.
So thanks for what you've left behind. It means a lot.
Now I'm gonna cry. Okay. Next we saw another beautiful, beautiful movie at the Belcourt.
Peter Weir. Last time we discussed a Peter Weir film, we discussed Master and Commander, where I thoroughly glazed all over that movie. The ultimate dad boner film. I love a Master and Commander. But this is his first full-length feature film. And can you imagine? Actually, I don't think it's technically his first one. I think he did some real low-budget stuff leading up to this. But his first, major feature with a broad release in an Australian film, because he's Australian, because they had a 4K re-release of the film Picnic at Hanging Rock that toured around to independent theaters. We saw this at the Belcourt here in Nashville as well. So it came out in 4K. Maybe when we reach the point of where David Cronenberg's The Shrouds take place, then we could watch the 8K version when it comes out.
Yeah.
But yes, this is our first time watching Picnic at Hanging Rock, which is like this murder mystery with there's no revelation of a true murder here, but it takes place in Australia.
It's more supernatural to me than anything.
Like, talk about David Lynch. If you want to like some cool environmental surrealism, definitely recommend Picnic at Hanging Rock. I thought this movie was pretty fucking fantastic.
It's brilliant.
But this like hoity-toity girls' school in Australia, they have this day
a sleepaway, like it's like a boarding school.
And there's these girls there, and there's this one girl. This is directed by Peter Weir, written by Cliff Green, stars Rachel Roberts, Dominic Guard, Helen Morse, Jackie Weaver, cinematography by Russell Boyd, music, which is notable, by George Zamfir and Bruce Smeaton. Yes, this movie did make money. It was a very low budget for its time, like around $500,000 it costs, and I think this is generally considered, even by their consensus, Australia's greatest film.
It's one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. There are these images within this movie that you could just take stills.
Yeah.
So many moments when they're at Hanging Rock, especially, all over the film. The beginning is gorgeous because there's all these girls getting ready and they wear all white and they're brushing each other's hair.
They're so clean.
And
they look so
pure
clean
and young. That's part of it. Is that these are young girls just at the beginning of becoming women.
And there's this girl named Miranda who's like this centerpiece who, like, everyone's pining for her. Whenever boys who help around the grounds like casually look at her, they can't help but like be drawn to her. There's another girl, Sarah, who is very obviously in love with her.
Sarah works there. She's one of the students, but you can tell that she is different than them. They put her in blue and she doesn't get to go on the picnic.
Right. She's apparently an orphan and a benefactor has sent her there, but something about like the money stopped coming in for this girl. So she's different than all the other girls in that the other girls are actually privileged.
Do you like that?
And, the Miranda character, she's nice to Sarah, but it's very obvious that Sarah is totally gay for Miranda.
I won't be here much longer.
And Miranda tells her at one point before she leaves, there's this thing in film, and I don't know if any film does it better than this one, and literature too, more modern day, there are like attempts at this, like the virgin suicides and things like that, but there's this idea of someone who is almost too perfect for this world, and that they know that. Like, and not in a vain way, just in a, I'm not going to be here, and she says to Sarah, she says that she cryptically says that she may not be coming back. And she looks at Sarah and says, you're going to have to find someone else to love. And in that moment, it could be because, listen, maybe we do like cuddle in bed and even kiss a little bit, but this is not where I'm going. Or it could truly be like, I'm not going to be here for you anymore.
And their upscale class lends themselves like this cleanliness, this shininess. And then they go to have a day to go to this place called the Hanging Rock.
And it's Valentine's Day in 1900. It's so...
This big... this is a good Valentine's Day pick for your honey next Valentine's Day. But this big jutting rock in the middle of the outback, and they go to it, and they look completely out of place in their bright white schoolgirl outfits and dresses and period dresses in this environment that is so mysterious. And there's this like rumbling sound like you hear in early David Lynch movies as well, like and like
it's just unsettling.
That just rumbles through like some spirit is going through, and you don't know if the spirit is evil or bad or what, because it's really the girls and them that are kind of the invaders in this space, right?
Well, and they say you have to get there by a certain time and you have to leave because you cannot be there after dark. It's too treacherous. And that's the most beautiful part is when before crazy things start happening, when they're eating and they're lounging and they're reading, and there's girls with magnifying glasses looking at plants, and they have this one French teacher who's also gorgeous and is younger and has more of a connection with the girls. You've got the older who's the older teacher, who's more like straight-laced and wearing black. She's the only one not wearing white.
The dark marm who only acknowledges the humanity of people if their payment comes in for the school, you know.
And these girls have been told that they're allowed to take their gloves off while they're at the Rock. That's how prim and proper they are, is that they have to wear gloves all the time. It's very, very specific.
Well, when they're at the Rock, Miranda and a few other girls, they run off to go play and climb on the rocks, and then they suddenly become drawn into this crevice in the rock, and then they go through, and then they're gone. And they cannot be found.
They've been told not to wander around the rock, but for some reason, they tell the French teacher they're going to go, and she says, okay, but don't go far. And they take this one girl with them who complains the whole time and is completely opposite of them. They are all entranced by where they are, and she could care less about where they are. She just is hot and tired and wants to go back the whole time. And you can tell she's always kind of that person. She doesn't get caught up in it, and she doesn't disappear because she stops following them at a point. She feels them losing their minds almost. They take off their stockings, they take off their shoes, and they just keep going.
She's too paranoid and whiny. It kind of breaks through the spell that the other girls go through.
She doesn't see what they're seeing.
But Sarah does not get to go on this trip, right? Because there's no money coming through, and she's bad because she's poorer than everyone else. But there's also a couple of boys too. This boy is of an upper class status, and another boy that helps with the cleaning of the grounds, like he works there.
Yeah, I think he drove.
And they witness the girls on their way, and they become very drawn to them. And the more upper class boy becomes obsessed. And Sarah points out, I forget the boy's name, but it's so subtle the way they do it, because the boy who works on the grounds is also an orphan, right? Mm-hmm. And Sarah is an orphan. And but they've never crossed paths. And then but the upper class boy, he's obsessed with going and finding these girls, and he actually finds one of them. It's almost like the Rock spat one out, right?
Well, and it almost killed him.
Yeah, and he gets lost up there, and they end up finding him later.
The boy finds him.
Yeah. And so it's just like this, just the mysteries of this rock, and no one can really explain why it's just pulling people in, but it's driving people mad because it's completely disrupted this upper echelon school environment, this high-end product of colonialism that is just existing out into and is standing out like a sore thumb.
And is in trouble. And this is the downfall.
Yeah.
Because they're already losing money. The headmistress is already talking about how she's going to have to let Sarah go because they can't afford to take care of her with no money. And, they've got to make sure that all these girls stay. So she freaks out. It's a tragedy that these girls are gone. But the French teacher and one of the teachers is gone. The marm, the older teacher, she goes as well. We find out eventually later that apparently she was walking up the hill with no skirt on, which is crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of things we learn in flashback, because once the girls leave, then it cuts to the school and the people are coming back, and everyone's revealing to Sarah that Miranda is gone along with other girls, and Sarah's bent up about it. And then it comes to reveal that Sarah's having to be dismissed from the grounds because her benefactor is not paying, so she's got to leave, and then she ends up taking her own life, right?
She jumps from her bedroom window and lands inside of the
greenhouse.
Greenhouse, thank you.
But the boy that works on the grounds, who's also an orphan, it comes to reveal that he is actually Sarah's brother. And if they had let her go to that rock,
they could have found each other.
And
that might have derailed the whole day, because she would have been with everything. Miranda, and she would have seen him, or he would have seen her and run to them. Because the guys saw the girls up close one time, but they were in the trees. They were on the other side of some trees, so the girls didn't see them.
So yeah, it's like this upper class colonized structure. Like, they have successfully invaded this land, and even and it even disaffects each other as they go in. And if people were just kind of more open, and if it wasn't for that classism, then these siblings could have been reunited, and that could have changed the whole course of the Rock. It's almost like the Rock is punishing these people, and is no, you need to feed me a sacrifice here. Like, there's so many ways you can interpret it.
Absolutely.
Because there is no answers, right? There is no, like, firm, like, oh, this is what's happening.
But truly, everyone in that school seems affected. There's a lot of girls who are leaving and not coming back. They are horrible to Sarah. At one point, we find that they're doing a music lesson, and she's been put up on this like stretching board as a punishment.
Yeah.
She's being tortured, basically.
Like, there should be lessons.
For no good reason.
Like, there should be lessons learned here,
Yeah.
but everything is just so creepy and surreal that that people just don't know what's going on.
The one girl who got saved, there's this weird part where they almost insinuate that this upper class boy who found her, that it's romantic that he found her. That's fucked. And then she comes to the school to see everyone before she's going home, and they just attack her.
Yeah.
It's straight up like, what happened? Why don't you know? Where are they? Where are our friends?
Marked.
Yeah.
She comes back and she's more like the environment that took her than she is like this society that she came out of.
It's crazy. It's
anyway,
so good.
I think what I loved about this movie and how I knew this movie was just, I mean, you knew it was good sitting there watching it, but when we talked about it after and like where we went with it, like that was how you know it was great. And I mean, I echo the Australian film nerd consensus that this is like an Australian masterpiece. I give it a 5.
I already wrote S on the paper, so it's an S tier. It's gorgeous.
This is one of the great period piece films. I mean, Peter Weir, he's very talented. He directed The Truman Show too.
Yeah, he's got a very interesting filmography.
He retired. Like, he's not one of these guys that's like, oh, I'm just going to keep making movies until I'm half dead. There was at one point where he was just like, I don't know if I can really do it anymore. I'm getting older.
Good for him.
But man, he made Picnic at Hanging Rock, Master and Commander. If those were the only 2 movies he fucking made.
Amazing.
Bro, you did it. Great job. Now look.
We're about to take a hard left turn, guys.
Now, you know, we busted on Osgood Perkins' technique style, and we felt it was hollow. And there's another guy that we're going to talk about because it is... we did promise to talk about every M. Night Shyamalan movie before the end of the year. And we're keeping that promise. And we are going to be criticizing at least 4 different M. Night Shyamalan movies here.
Right now.
But M. Night Shyamalan, to his credit, compared to what Osgood Perkins did, there is purpose at least to M. Night Shyamalan's shots and stuff and what he does.
Yes.
He did take the right lessons from, you know, Hitchcock, and at least in the visual sense. But there was a movie that came out last year called Trap, and which is basically like if Psycho had a family and went to a concert. And I guess this movie, I can easily imagine that that M. Night Shyamalan went to a concert with his daughter, and he was just like, what if this was all? What if I was a serial killer here? What if I was actually watching my daughter in concert here?
I don't even think it was that much. I mean, his daughter is in this, and she plays the pop star. I
Lady
think this
Raven.
Was straight up nepotism. He just wanted to make a movie for his daughter.
Look, I mean, she seems like a nice girl, but yeah, this is some
There's too much
this
of
is
her
ultra
in it.
nepo. Even for Hollywood, this is almost like a little too nepo.
It's too much.
And this is one thing will commend. Like, we thought there was going to be a twist. I called that the twist was that Josh Hartnett's character was going to be, this stars Josh Hartnett, Ariel Denog, Salika Night Shyamalan, Haley Mills, Parent Trap.
Yeah, she's like an FBI profiler.
I was kind of hoping that there would be 2 of her. Alison Pill, cinematography by Siambu Muktaprom. If I mispronounce that, I apologize. I mean, M. Night Shyamalan movies always make money. This is an $83 million movie over a $30 million budget. But Josh Hartnett his character goes to a concert with his daughter, and he ends up, it's real pretty quick. It's not twisted, which I do like. He needs to get out of that pattern that he is a serial killer. But he knows somehow Haley Mills is a profiler who I forget how she knows, but that the killer is going to be here at this concert.
We find out at the end why she knows, and it's basically because his wife called in an anonymous.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's going to be there. And so they zero in on this concert, and they're profiling people. They're searching everyone as they go in and out. And he's watching everything all the time. His daughter, the girl that plays the daughter, is really great in this, I think, because she is very much that tween girl, feels awkward, doesn't have friends, has broken up with some of her friends, and there's a weirdness, but her dad has got her on the floor for her favorite person, and he tells lies to get her to be able to meet her. Like, you don't really know what his end goal is. Like, was his goal the whole time to get that? Like, what was he going to do there? Who was he? Or was he just there with his daughter, and then it escalated to a point where he had to do some shit stuff?
You know, it seems like M. Night Shyamalan, he's not really the type of director that can take a mediocre actor and make them good. But he does at least seem to know when actors are good actors.
Yes.
Because even though his movies may not often be very good, that, with the exception of the Wahlbergs of the world, that like, although that one Donnie scene in
it's great.
Sixth
It may
Sense,
be the best thing he did, has done, will do.
but like in this sense that like if you're talking about a director who's not really going to make any actor go beyond their own, you know, talent capability, I did think Josh Hartnett actually did a really good job in this movie.
He really did.
His role and how he played it, I thought he did pretty good.
You see that little box? That is going to release carbon monoxide and kill him within 5 minutes. He is going to die if I am caught. That's just an absolute fact. I can do it from here, from this device, like calling an Uber. You caught me. I admit it. But you can save him. I'll let him go if you do one thing.
The compliments will in there. And because there's just something very flat about this movie, and I feel like the tension here, like they're really, I mean, I could see what is supposed to be tension, but I just felt nothing sitting through this movie. And then there's this aspect of, there's some funny things about it, right? There's one point I want to talk about where he and his daughter are joking about slangs, like she's busting on him for him misusing slang. And then later, as they're sitting in the seats, right, she goes, "Dad, these seats slap." And after they just kind of clowned him trying to do it, then I'm just imagining, when I'm watching an M. Night Shyamalan movie, more so than maybe any other director, I'm just imagining M. Night at the typewriter typing these dialogue lines. So they're ragging each other for the dad saying slang wrong, and then M. Night still has to write a teenage girl character, and it's still going to use the slang, but I cannot get the image out of my head. It's almost like I hear M. Night saying, "Slap, these seats slap."
Yeah, at some point, I just started having a lot of fun with this movie because I decided this is his comedy. This is a comedy for M. Night Shyamalan.
It's a great way to sit through this movie.
As soon as you think about it in that way, it becomes brilliant because, you know, Josh Hartnett is really great and he's playing this character, but he's a serial killer and his brain works on this, like, you know, other like calculating level, right? But he keeps having to deal with these ridiculous situations, even with they're looking for him, but then at one point, his daughter's ex-best friend's mom just starts screaming at him. Every time they go out into the concourse, it's full of people. That's a problem.
Yeah, there's a lot of intermissions
everyone would be
in this
watching
concert.
this concert. They're not. I don't know what's happening.
That's one thing that's weird. Is like
the music is terrible.
Doesn't this movie know how concerts work? Like,
right.
Also the way the sound is, like when you hear the performance of Lady Raven, is played by M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. Like, it's like you're listening to, like, a CD, right? But that's not what it would sound like at a concert. Like, it really bothered me that the movie didn't have that feel of a concert. Like, it didn't have that feel of the crowd. It was like the movie was afraid to drown anything out. Like, it had to keep reminding us that these characters are at the center of it.
But they're having, like, full, coherent conversations with each other on the floor of a concert.
Now, if that sound was mixed in the way I think a movie about a concert would, I don't know if it really would have made the movie any better, but I think it would have come off a little more sleek, you know, and more interesting, a little more realistic. Mm-hmm. But like the feeling of the concert, like, it is kind of laughable when you think about it. It is kind of funny. And this movie does try to make jokes, too.
Yeah.
That often, like, hit or don't. Like, it's... M. Night maybe not that naturally a funny guy, but this guy can't not make money, so no one's going to tell him he's not that funny.
Well, and also more than Psycho, to me, it was like if Jason Bateman... Did I say Jason Bateman? Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
Patrick Bateman from American Psycho, if he
was
in the suburbs and had a family, like a suburban dad. That is to me what it was, because he doesn't actually have... maybe he cares for his daughter, but it's weird.
Whenever we make Patrick Bateman comparisons to anything, we always forget that Patrick Bateman never actually killed people. It was all in his head. Because he was so fake that even in his his murder fantasies weren't real.
I haven't watched the movie in a long time. I read the book a long time ago, and I think in the book it's
the book's
vague,
still kind of the same. It's just more
but
graphic.
It's like vague, and it is a lot more graphic.
Yeah.
And there's entire chapters just talking about songs from the 80s. It's pretty rad.
Yeah.
It's a good book.
But yes, this movie is, gosh, I could see some people liking it a little more than I did.
Sure.
And like I said, I thought Josh Hartnett was pretty good, but it just seemed like a little... maybe laughable in ways that it didn't intend.
And once we leave the venue, I didn't really care about anything that was happening.
Yeah.
Too many close-ups on Lady Raven's face.
Lady Raven. His daughter seems like a real nice girl. I don't want to talk bad about her.
No, for sure.
But let's be honest. The only reason she's in this movie, and apparently she's the singer, and I wouldn't say she was bad at singing from what I heard.
This apparently isn't her style of music, though. She's like a singer-songwriter. I think her music is softer from what she was saying in the interview we watched.
More like a Fiona Apple type.
I don't know, maybe, but this was apparently reaching for her. But he also wanted to put his daughter in front of the world. He wanted to boost her.
And I mean, in the modern landscape of movies where the studios are so unsure, this guy can still make money. So they'll be like, yeah, put your fucking daughter in a movie.
I'm going to give it a 2.5.
I'm going to give it a 2.75. Got to give Josh Hartnett credit for putting it right over that 2.5.
5.25.
Yeah.
I'm just right down the middle because I had just as many good things as bad things.
Now, for our last 3 film discussions, we're staying in the M. Night Shyamalan canon. But he has a trilogy out there that started way back in like 2001. Is that when this? 2000. It's the Unbreakable Split Glass trilogy. You remember Unbreakable, right? The 2000 film written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, starring Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson, Robin Wright, cinematography by Eduardo Serra. And this movie, I mean, this is the follow-up to The Sixth Sense, one of the highest-grossing horror movies of all time.
Bruce Willis is his muse.
And this movie made crazy money again, $248 million.
I think I saw it in the theater.
I think I might have as well. I think my younger self probably liked this movie better than I did now.
Oh, for sure. The thesis of this movie, which I actually think is a very interesting concept that you can play with, is the idea that every extreme has to have an equal and opposite extreme. But it all, goes into like comic book world and comparing everything to superheroes. And honestly, that was a little too heavy-handed for me in every single one of these movies. It was too much. You don't have to say superhero 20 times for us to know that that's what you're doing. It's almost more also like a mutation that is happening as well over time. And it's interesting, but it's too heavy. He never wants to let us figure things out on our own.
Now, I mean, this movie's pretty well tread. Probably one of his more, people seem to like this one even in hindsight, similar to The Sixth Sense. But it's, of course, David Dunn is played by Bruce Willis. And we over time learn that he is essentially indestructible. He can't seem to be beat. I mean, he can drown and he's afraid of water.
Yes.
And we start to figure it out when he survives a train disaster.
Yeah.
And of course, it's twisty now because at this point, M. Night's like, oh, I got to make everything a twist now. And probably the studios are probably being like, you got to twist this up, right? You got to twist it up, right? And the twist is that Mr. Glass, who is his opposite in that he's very fragile.
Mr. Samuel L. Jackson.
Is actually set up all these fucking disasters that killed thousands and thousands and thousands of people in order to flush out a guy who is indestructible.
Yeah, he murdered tens of thousands of people.
And that's the reveal at the end of the movie.
And leading up to the reveal of that, he is trying to be friends with David. He's trying to help him and say, we can work together. But then, you flip and he's like, this is who I am. Every hero has to have a villain. Like, he so is playing into that.
It's played like the opposite because one guy can't seem to be hurt. The other guy is so hurt. But Mr. Glass's power is how smart he is.
It's his brain, yes. And they talk about that more later, I think. But yeah.
I think, like...
Well, and David's kind of dope.
This is what I'm saying. They should remake this movie, right?
Okay.
But
no, I know where you're going with this.
Tell me where you think I'm going with this.
I think that you're going to say...
The opposite...
That I think what you're going to say is that the Mr. Glass character, it just needs to be a genius, and that the David
Downs
I knew
syndrome.
you were going to say that. He is a little dopey. He's not the smartest. He doesn't pick up on cues a lot. We do find out at the beginning that his wife, Robin Wright, I believe plays her, they've broken up, but he's still living in the house because he's kind of a loser and he can't get a job, but he also doesn't really want to leave. But they imply that he's kind of a loser. Like But Mr. Glass sees him in a different light. He's like, oh man, like you work security because you want to protect people. Like he kind of is like pumping him up.
I totally forgot that he had the crime sense. That he can sense if someone
he can like brush past you and feel that if you're going to or have done something bad. That's Shyamalan is in all of his own movies. He actually plays someone who he has drugs on him, and then and David's like, somebody's got something wrong in this line. I got to find him. And he goes and dumps his drugs before David touches him. So David can't get him. It's
I totally forgot about the crime sense thing.
Yeah. He can
Mr. Glass, Mr. Glass should be able to sense if you're a truly good person then. They should be opposites in every single way.
Well, that gets into our second movie.
I think this movie's a little ham-fisted overall.
Yes.
A little goofy, but I actually love Mr. Glass's character.
I do like him
in the sense that he is a comic book theorist. And there's a scene where he runs a gallery, and it's just these pencil drawings of comic characters.
The thing to notice about this piece, the thing that makes it very, very special, is its realistic depiction of its figures. When the characters reached the magazine, they were exaggerated. As always happens. This is vintage.
And this guy's like, my 6-year-old son would love this picture. And
no,
he's like,
get out.
He's like, no, you're not. No, forget that. Like,
this is art. This is serious art. This is not for children.
Do you see any Teletubbies in here? Do you see a slender plastic tag clipped to my shirt with my name printed on it? Did you see a little Asian child with a blank expression sitting outside in a mechanical helicopter that shakes when you put quarters in it? No? Well, that's what you see at a toy store. And you must think you're in a toy store because you're here shopping for an infant named Jeb.
I think when I probably would have liked this movie more at the time is when I was more, I was very younger, more immature, but I was a comic book geek. I guess that's still at my soul.
It's always going to be in there a little bit.
This is really... what, like a comic, like how serious he is, and like Mr. Glass is being so serious about like comics and the art of comics and the prophetic nature of comics that I no doubt at that time I was like, yeah, man, comics are like this powerful. I probably bought that character, right? But really, it's stupid because Mr. Glass kind of represents this aspect of comic book nerds that I grew to resent over time, in which comic book nerds, they want their comic book thing to be taken seriously as though it's like classic literature. But what is special about comics, especially old comics, is that they're fun, they're campy, they're out here, they over explain, the comic books are fun because they're comic books. It's not that they're not fun. They're not. You don't have to turn them into a fucking James Joyce novel.
No, and people have used the medium to tell very serious, beautiful
stories. Of course. And a comic can represent any kind of story.
Absolutely. But at its root,
it
is an adventure medium for children.
And what is presented as Dr. Glass is obsessing with the superhero dynamics.
Yeah, but
that's where we're at here.
Yeah.
But Mr. Glass is really like a perfect encapsulation of this blowhard comic fan that wants his Batman comic to be as revered as some great work of literature, when really it's like, it's okay, it's just a Batman comic. But what you should do is go read the work of literature instead of trying to make your Batman comic on that. Go see what the literature is all about. Keep reading. You don't only have to over concentrate on the Batman comic.
Well, he's also someone who obviously extremely smart. We've talked about that, but the comic books were what got him through, because he was always injured. He'd broken, I think he said something like 37 bones over his life or whatever.
We see him fall in this movie. It's hilarious.
Oh my God. No, it's not. That is like, oh, that makes me feel gross. But he believes that comic books are showing us what our true potential could be. He thinks it's rooted in some underlying, maybe cosmic, cultural knowledge that these people exist.
I definitely think comic book nerds attach themselves to this movie, because there was a part of them, other than they being easily breakable, that they probably took Mr. Glass very seriously there.
Yeah.
Because they see themselves in the rhetoric of Mr. Glass as that equivalent. But the reality is that Mr. Glass, while, I mean, I guess he is smart in how he managed to somehow have the resources to cause all these disasters, but the reality is, based upon the only thing Mr. Glass cares about, like, he's not that smart, you know? Like, he's not actually well-read. He's a comic book historian, but you have
No, I think he's a genius, but he also has hyper-focus.
If you want your comic books to be on par with the lit, you have to understand the lit. But I feel like too many comic book fans, they want their shit to be taken too seriously without understanding the things that they want their comic books to be sat beside. You know, I love comic books. I think they're a lot of fun. I think they can be special. But it doesn't replace, like, great literature, it doesn't. It doesn't. It can come kind of close. Like, nothing with a fucking high C ad in it is like gonna be something like a great work of literature. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Let's rate this
3.
one, because 3. I'm gonna match you. We're gonna say 6. Okay.
Because I think Mr. Glass's character is so funny to me. I kind of fall the same with Trap, but Mr. Glass, I do like how ridiculous that character is. So I raise it up to a 3.
Yes, I do enjoy it. I like the second movie. This is my favorite of the trilogy. Is Split.
Oh, yeah. That's the next one we're going to.
We jumped 12 years in the future?
Yes.
So,
this is...
when did it come out? That's what I'm asking you.
2016. It stars...
So 16 years in the future.
Stars James McAvoy, Anya Taylor-Joy, Betty Buckley, cinematography by Mike Goulakis. And this is a Blumhouse movie. And this was the biggest Blumhouse hit.
At that point.
Up until Five Nights at Freddy's came out.
This movie is... I think so interesting. James McAvoy, I think, did a brilliant job in this.
No, he is objectively, like, kind of great in this.
He is creepy as fuck as Dennis. He is stoic as Patricia. He has DID.
Dissociative identity disorder.
He plays also, he has an alter that is a 9-year-old boy named Hedvig, which he switches between these people so well, and they're all so fleshed out, and they all have specific ways that he holds his body differently for everyone.
Yeah.
When he turned into Patricia, like, he could just, like, look at you and be like, that's Patricia. And he could just still be wearing the same clothes as he was as Hedwig, but you know.
Is this M. Night's best movie?
I think it might be. I really love this movie.
I can't remember what we rated Sixth Sense, but this is, like, actually pretty
Sixth
good.
Sense was pretty high, but our thing was with Sixth Sense is it's not rewatchable in the same way. When you rewatch it, you pick it apart. This movie, I know I could rewatch and love it.
Yeah, you could really dive into McAvoy's performance. Like, he really is great in this movie.
The thing about this one, though, is that the theory of each thing has to have its equal opposite. This is kind of the other bit of that, where you could say that, you know, he is split into all these different personalities, but he's also very broken. And you mentioned something earlier about not being able to see if someone was good or not. I can't remember how you phrased it, but the thing about the Beast, who is the alter that we don't meet until fairly well through the movie, is that his thing is that you are only pure if you have suffered. Yeah. You have to have gone through pain to be pure, and otherwise you are just as good as to die. Like, you should just be killed.
And Anya Taylor-Joy, who's like a teenager at this point, like, she gets kidnapped with some of her school friends. Well, they're not really her friends.
No, they're just like girls. But yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy ends up in this. They end up in this room.
So they're trying to figure out how to maneuver around this man who is like, they call it the Horde. Essentially, he's just multiple things, and then they all culminate into this beast persona, which is almost like they worship it, or like they're all centering around it.
What's happened inside of him? The Horde is what they call him, as his like, that's his like villain name. That's his like villain name in the newspapers. But what's happened inside of him is he has the real person that he is so deeply buried, and he has all these other alters. We barely meet some of them, but a lot of them have been trying to protect him, and Dennis and Patricia have gone off the rails, and they worship the Beast. So Beast, they're like, the Beast is coming. Dennis procures young girls for the Beast to kill and eat. He eats their insides. But the thing that's so interesting,
he has another persona that's like a New England art dealer, and he even has that accent.
He's gay too, I think.
And that's the one who's speaking to the psychiatrist, who actually knows how dangerous he can be. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of a weird flaw, is that she understands how dangerous he can be.
She figures out that, isn't it Betty Buckley? Betty Buckley plays his doctor. She figures out that the one that she normally sees, which is the art guy, is not actually who's coming to see her. Dennis is coming to see her pretending. And she figures it out.
Dennis is a great actor.
Dennis is so good. But he figures, she figures it out. And, she ends up in kind of in the climax of this movie. But the thing that's so interesting about this one is that, glass breaks and David can't get hurt. But this character, the Beast, physically transforms. He mutates. Like, when he turns into the Beast, he gets bigger, his veins pop out, he's taller, he's stronger, he has these huge muscles, and he truly like cracks and becomes that, as though he's like a werewolf. So it's the opposite of it doesn't fit in with the theory that has been presented in the first movie to me, because it's not, there's no opposite of that, except I guess you could say, like, is smart and has his shit together. I don't know. It's, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't, I love it the most.
Yeah.
But they never explain that bit, except kind of at the end, which we'll get to in the third movie. But the why of it, not the how it fits into the greater story.
The Beast ends up letting Anya Taylor-Joy's character go,
because he sees that she's cut herself.
She's a cutter, and her parents had died, and she lives with her uncle, who we find out is sexually abusing
and
her.
And has been since she was a little girl.
Because she suffers, the Beast interprets that through her suffering, she is pure. So the Beast lets her go, which kind of makes sense for how they're connected in the next movie. But the movie actually ends incredibly sad, because while she gets out of that situation, the movie ends with her having to go back to live with her uncle.
No, she doesn't. She tells the cop. So she's in the back of a cop car, and a woman cop comes up to her and is like, your uncle's here or whatever. And she looks at her, and she told that lady. She never went back, because in the next movie, which is 3 weeks later,
I might have missed that a little
she's
bit.
In a foster home by the next movie. But the one thing I did want to mention is that the thing about him is that if you say his real name, Kevin Wendell Crumb, the real Kevin will come out, but he doesn't want to be in the real world. He's so damaged from the abuse that he suffered when he was a child, when he was this little boy with his mother, that that's why he developed these alters to protect him. And so she yells his name at one point, because the doctor had written it on a paper. And when she sees Kevin, they have a connection.
There's a shotgun I bought. It's in the bottom cabinet, hidden behind things. The shells are in my uniform closet out in the service hall. Kill me.
wait. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. He can't handle reality.
You know, you're pretty conscious, of course, that as McAvoy's going through all these characters, that there is an innocent man at the core of all this. And I think it's to a credit of McAvoy's acting that you never lose that realization that there is something innocent in the middle there. And I think that's what helps make that character so interesting ultimately.
And some of his alters even seem to doubt themselves. Like when Anya's talking to Hedwig, she kind of makes him like wonder, like, is Dennis doing the right thing? And at one point Dennis is like, I don't know if I should be listening to Patricia. But I did want to say one more thing. I was reading about this movie because I liked it so thank you, babe. Because I liked it so much. Bobby's touching my face. Because he probably wants me to stop talking, but I just need to say.
No, I just was being weird.
No, okay. The mental health community hates this movie. So basically, this is.
What about the self-diagnosers on TikTok?
Well,
do they like this movie?
They probably love it. No, here's what I read, and I'm not going to be brief about this. I didn't read deeply into it.
I think I got some beast in me.
Well, what I was going to say is that the people who really have DID, it's like 1% of people. And usually they are very meek people. They are way more likely to hurt themselves than anyone else. And one person, and again, this is speaking a little generally because I didn't dig too deep, but one of the things they were saying is that this movie could actually trigger people. Like, if you have this as a problem, I guess, like, if you watch it, it could, like, fuck you up. I don't know. That part I didn't understand as much, but I do understand the idea of they're making dissociative identity disorder a villain aspect.
I mean, I'm sure it's, like, not a proper representation. I mean, no doubt. But, like, as rare as it is, it's also this condition that is presumed upon way and misunderstood more than it actually exists. So like I can understand how it could be such this juicy thing that is so easy to misrepresent. I get
it's not the first time it's been done in a movie.
I mean, my heart definitely goes out to anyone who actually has the ID because that means they went through some intense fucking shit. I mean, people go through trauma all the time and don't disassociate in their identity. So you can imagine the people that do, what the fuck they went through, but
he wasn't originally going to play this role.
Who was going to play it?
I think it was a Phoenix.
Joaquin. Oh yeah.
It was going to be Joaquin.
I think I did hear that too. I guess he would have done a good job, but James McAvoy did crush it, no denying, and that's why I give it a 3.75.
I'm giving it a 4.25.
So that's like an 8. That's a solid 8.
It is my favorite. We haven't rewatched everything yet, and I haven't seen all of his movies yet, but right now, today, Split is my favorite Shyamalan movie.
I mean, good for M. Night for having, like, this quality, because I wouldn't expect much this late in his career, but I think Split is a pleasant surprise.
There is also something in this movie that should be noted, and is something that is actually a very good tip if you are in a scary situation where someone is going to attack you. There's a moment where Dennis is taking one of the girls out of the room and Anya yells to her, pee on yourself. It is a real thing. Like, if you can't fight someone off, you need to do something crazy. Like, whether it's lay down and start doing your legs all over, like kicking and screaming, or piss yourself, like things like that can throw someone off. I'm just saying, it's a self-defense mechanism. So our last movie of the trilogy is Glass.
Glass, grass, or ass, your choice. He did not say that in the movie, but I kind of wished he did.
Yeah, that would have been funny.
Well, David Dunn returns. Bruce Willis, who's well into the effects of the condition we know he has, and I think it's kind of obvious that something is a little off with Bruce here. His character, of course, wore that rain jacket with the hood, and he's got that up a lot, so you can see in a lot of the action shots that
it's probably not him
that we're shooting around. I mean, now we know what we didn't know then, and you kind of understand it. And of course, Mr. Glass returns as well, and this takes place 2 weeks after Split too. Like
2 or 3.
They give that time frame. So Anya Taylor-Joy's character is already well into the foster home and having a connection with the kids that live there. But this movie is, I feel like everything kind of fell together right for M. Night and Split. And this is him trying to force something, this concept. And there was a hint that this was going to happen at the end of Split as well. When Bruce Willis made a cameo And but we come back to this idea of superpowered beings and shit like that. And David Dunn hears about the Horde persona who's still out there and has kidnapped more girls. And he goes and he stops them. And this organization comes and takes them both. And they move Mr. Glass, who is this probably one of the most prolific terrorists in the history of the world. And they put them all together into a mental facility.
But they have him drugged out to where he's so smart that he pretends he's more drugged than he is. The other thing is the kid from the first movie,
the son,
plays the grown-up
from
son.
Unbreakable.
And they own like a surveillance equipment store. And his dad goes on, quote unquote, walks. And he is like looking up things, listening to police radios. And his dad he's basically Batman without all the money.
There's a lot going on in this one.
It is a lot.
And I won't say that there weren't any emotional beats here. Like, everyone ends up dying, right? And I won't say there are no, like, successful emotional beats, because we did establish the Anya Taylor-Joy's relationship with the James McAvoy Horde, and like how
Kevin in particular,
and I think there's some things that work, and they drowned David Dunn in like a puddle of water. There was something kind of like like brutal about that was a bit affecting,
and they broke glass into a million pieces.
But there was also like kind of setting up a lot of stuff that like there was supposed to be this building that Mr. Glass is going to poison a lot of, like it kept hinting that there was going to be a showdown at an Osaka building in downtown Pennsylvania that never happened. Like, it just gets no further than the parking lot
was crazy.
This psychiatric facility.
That felt crazy to me, but it is like a supervillain kind of thing to say, hey, there's a big thing going on. We're going to have a fight in front of the whole city, it's going to be on television.
And when I heard about that, it's like, oh, that's kind of
cool. Like a Spider-Man
cool
scene.
Yeah, I mean,
truly.
It kind of leads like it's going to lead up to that. No, we don't get there.
But you don't get that far because they've been intercepted. This doctor.
Did we say we're talking about the movie Glass from 2019?
Okay. You didn't read the stuff, though.
Oh, okay.
You can read it.
It's a bunch. It's all those same people.
It's all the same. The thing is, though, is that they're all being held in this facility together, and they're being put together to react off of each other. But come to find out, the reason they don't get past the parking lot is because they've been contained by this group that has these little tattoos on their arm that they go and find people who have these extraordinary abilities. And if they can convince them that they don't, that they're just regular people, they'll let them keep living.
If there is one of you, the opposite of you appears. It escalates. We step in. There just can't be gods amongst us. It's not fair. It has worked just fine for 10,000 years, our way. Take consolation in the fact that you were right about your theory. Be at peace.
But if they don't, and they believe they're superheroes, or they're acting like these guys doing crazy shit,
right. Sarah
they
Paulson,
have to get rid of them.
Sarah Paulson plays through the whole movie, and she keeps trying to convince them they're not superheroes.
She needs them to say that and believe it.
Even though there's so much fucking evidence. And the only person who couldn't possibly be superpowered is probably Mr. Glass. He just seems like a real genius guy.
He's a genius and he has a disease.
But there's so much evidence of these people. Like, why would they ever agree with her?
Well, they don't. They won't.
But then it's come to reveal that she knows that they're superpowered or whatever, and she's a part of this ancient organization that kills the superpowers people. Like, no one's ever...
Unless they can convince them just to be regular people.
But it kind of implies that they've never really been able to do that. Like, you're still going to let them loose in the... Like, if you convince David Dunn he's not unbreakable, he's just going to go back out in the world and not get broken.
No, absolutely. She does say something, though, where she says that she'd hoped it wouldn't come to this when she was... I wonder, too, if there could be some hypnosis, but these guys are not... hypnotizable.
The Secret Society bit, that twist,
dumb.
I thought it was dumb.
It was dumb because then they had this like private meeting where she stood up and was like, this and this and this happened. But what it is we find out this entire trilogy is the origin story of superheroes being real, and the big bad is actually that organization that is trying to tamp down these people with powers. And We got to figure out our seating arrangement better because I almost hit you in the face with my gesturing.
Yeah, it's okay.
But
at
the end, they let out the videos.
Yeah, Mr. Glass has he dies, but he has this backup plan in which he gets all this information to
it goes to his mom,
the secondary
son,
cast
and
members,
and Anya.
Yeah, and they reveal to the world that superpowered people exist. There was a cool part where, at least a cool visual thing where James McAvoy, he turns into the Beast again, but he starts running on his, like how a gorilla would run. Like there was kind of some cool visual stuff that happened here.
I thought he seemed more like a cat, but I get what you're saying. Like he was like leaping. It was great.
And as good as he was in Split, it was like he's still good here, but there's just so much like crowded out here. It's like a lot to juggle. I just don't really think it pulled it off.
The only emotional parts for me, Mr. Glass's mom at the end was a little sad, but also it felt very tacked on to just have them all show up at the same day.
Yeah.
But the only part that got to me that I thought was very sweet, again ties back into the fact that I love Split, is when Anya actually said Kevin's name again, and he came out for a moment, and they got to say goodbye to each other. But as they were hugging, they shot him.
That
right?
I feel like that was an affecting scene
because she doesn't have anybody, and neither does he.
But that's because they came from like a good movie.
Exactly. So that was like invested. The button on the end of that, and that's the only thing I really cared about the whole time.
I'm giving this one a 2. A 2.
I'm gonna give it a 2.25, and that 2.5 is for that scene.
4.25, yes, and that does it. No,
we did it.
We went through a lot of movies there. So this is going to be a long-ass episode, and we will come back again. I think I do want to come back, hopefully before the end of June. We'll talk about some gay movies.
We like gay movies.
And I don't know if we'll do an episode before that, but there is a subject that I want us to breach that I will guarantee will be the worst topic we've discussed. The absolute worst topic. And
even when we were on the Documentaires, because you made me watch some fucked up shit when we were in the Documentaires days.
It's probably in that realm. But it's dark as fuck, but
I think I know what you're talking about.
But we're gonna do it. We're ballsy like that, all right? And you don't have to like it, but it happens, so we're gonna talk about it. It happens in movies. And some people really hate it when it happens in movies. And I understand. I completely understand why. But I am sweating. I'm sweating here. I'm sweating out my cold.
Even terrible, awful stories need to be told because they happen. They're real.
That's true. And so we will be back. We're not doing multiple a week. We're going to come at you once a month, twice at the most. And I don't know if every episode will be as long as this, but I think at least 6, talking about 6 different movies an episode at least.
Well, yeah,
sounds good.
This was super long because we just caught you up on everything we've watched since
we left. Yeah,
we took a big break from even watching movies, and then we started going to the theater to see things, and then we started watching some
we
stuff.
Started getting really back into it.
Yeah, so we're excited about it, but it could take us a month to watch 6 more movies at the rate we're going.
So shroud your parents, and let's get out of here, right? Say bye.
Bye.
He's a poet, he's a picker, he's a prophet, he's a pusher, he's a pilgrim and a preacher and a problem when he's stoned. He's a walking contradiction, partly truth and partly fiction, taking ever wrong direction on his lonely way back home.
Thank you for watching The Projectors. Click the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. We are available on YouTube and podcast. You can also support the show by liking, leaving comments, reviewing, sharing, and never questioning Bob when he claims that certain characters in movies are like autism. We love you. Goodbye.
I'm in the trap. Memphis is always hot. Fuck the police, dog. I don't give a fuck. I'm trapping all